the budget silence on revising the PM Kisan Nidhi disbursement speaks louder than any promise made elsewhere. हमारे किसानों की आय दोगुनी करने का वादा तो आपसे पूरा हो नहीं पाया। कम से कम उनकी सम्मान निधि ही बढ़ा दीजिए। पिछले 6 सालों से ये सिर्फ 6,000 रुपए पर ही अटकी हुई है। While there is an imperative need for breakthroughs in research and development and AI-driven agricultural technologies, paradoxically, funding allocations for agricultural research and education have dipped by 4.8% from the previous year's 10,466 crore, that's now to 9,967 crore, decreasing precisely when the finance minister is announcing new AI schemes. And frankly, Madam, touting a new AI app when the majority of our farmers can't afford fertilizers, harvesters, or tractors seems rather detached from reality, except of the virtual kind. Now, this budget speaks at length about crops from cashews to coconuts, yet ignores one of agriculture's most persistent concerns, pepper. Once hailed as black gold, the sector is now in distress in my state. In Kerala, which is one of the country's leading producers of pepper, output has fallen from 40,000 plus tons to 30,000 tons and is projected to decline by a further 28.7% in the foreseeable future. The uncomfortable truth, Mr. Chairman, is that our spice market faces such deep challenges today that if history repeated itself, the British might not even bother looting us for it. Next to unemployment. This House has had this conversation far too many times. We recite the same statistics, express the same concerns, and then move on, while unemployment quietly worsens. The data at the end of 2025 makes one thing unmistakably clear. Rural unemployment has stagnated at 3.9%, while urban unemployment continues to rise, ending at 6.7% in December. The crisis is now starting to concentrate where aspirations and frustrations are colliding in our cities. And yet even the centre's flagship responses have failed to rise to the moment. Under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, barely 41% of certified candidates secured placements. More than half of those jobs were concentrated in just 5 sectors. And of the 1,380 crores released, 278 crores remained unutilized. The Prime Minister Internship Scheme tells a similar story. Allocation, 10,831 crores. Ministry spends 526 crores in the first 9 months. This pattern is recurrent, sir. In fiscal year 25, allocations were cut after large unspent balances, with actual spending at just 680 crores. So much for creating employment when we can't even spend the money allocated for the job of creating employment. And what of gig workers, the backbone of our new economy? There is no mention of them in the budget. Their welfare has been deprioritized at a time when unrest grows over the absence of clearly defined benefits, time-bound claims and appeals mechanisms, and mandatory disclosure of work hours, earnings and deductions. This silence further weakens the gig workers' access to social security in practice. Any discourse about the workers of our country stands incomplete without a discussion about Manrega, now replaced by the ambitious VBG Ramji Act. It increased guaranteed work days from 100 to 125, introduced weekly wage payments, but at the same time it hollowed out the legal employment guarantee. While Manrega was demand-driven, fully centrally funded for unskilled wages, and rooted in decentralized planning, the new Act caps central funding through state-wise normative allocations, shifts 40% of the costs, the wage costs, to most states, and allows the scheme to be paused for up to 60 days during the peak agricultural seasons, shrinking the real window of guaranteed work. Once a state's allocation is exhausted, workers' statutory right to employment effectively ends. This converts an open-ended rights-based program into a budget-restricted, centrally rationed scheme where fiscal ceilings override legal entitlements. The VBG Ramji scheme received a massive allocation of 95,000 crores in this budget, Yet it has a major overlooked flaw that also needs to be addressed as soon as possible, Madam Minister. It attempts inclusion, but perhaps unintentionally drives technological exclusion. Manrega trusted the panchayats and gram sabhas to plan work based on local needs and community strengths. But the G Act mandates dashboards with GIS tools, PM Gati Shakti layers, central digital stacks. Local priorities are filtered through a Viksit Bharat National Rural Infrastructure Stack, making biometrics, geotagging, dashboards, and AI audits statutory requirements. Thus, for millions of tech workers, rural workers, one tech failure will mean exclusion without appeal and work without skill considerations. Now, when you have millions struggling to find work, Mr. Chairman, the least the government can do is to ensure that they move freely across the country to seek opportunities. But here too, Mr. Chairman, we see a pattern of neglect that is as consistent as it is shameful. Nowhere, I might add, is this neglect of connectivity clearer than in Kerala. Despite repeated demands for new railway lines to decongest existing routes, the state finds no mention in the Finance Minister's much-touted 7 high-speed railway corridor initiative. One is compelled to ask, does strategic connectivity end where political inconvenience begins? The consequences of this neglect are borne daily by passengers and railway staff alike in my state. Chronic overcrowding has pushed passenger capacity to dangerous limits. Sanitation has visibly deteriorated. Even basic facilities remain inadequate. It's telling, Mr. Chairman, that locomotive pilots entrusted with the safety of thousands are forced to work without assured access to toilets. For passengers, the experience is no better. Overcrowded coaches, unsanitary conditions, and a steady erosion of dignity that no glossy brochure can conceal. These failures are structural, they're not incidental. The railway sanction strength across categories stands at over 2 lakhs, yet only about 1.59 lakh employees are in service. This staffing deficit compromises safety, delays operations, and stretches frontline workers beyond reasonable limits. A railway system cannot run on announcements alone. Continued underinvestment in capacity, personnel, and basic human conditions risks turning the nation's lifeline into a symbol of administrative exhaustion. And it's not just railways, Mr. Chairman. We hear of national corridors and maritime ambitions, but Vizhinjam Port, India's gateway to global trade, our only port that can host the world's largest container ships, is treated as a local afterthought, with no central support announced for the road and rail connectivity that is hampering its potential as a world-class transshipment port. Similarly, while 20 new national waterways are to be operationalized, it remains unclear how many, if any, will benefit Kerala. Ship repair ecosystems are promised in Patna and Varanasi, but not in a state with 44 rivers and a rich inland waterway network. Our coastal communities, Mr. Chairman, face the deadly peril of sea erosion that has already leached so much of our territory into the sea. But there is no money for the sea walls and groins so essential for coastal protection. I have been raising this repeatedly in the House over the last 15 years. The centre tells me it's a state's problem. The state says it has no money. So we continue losing our territory, our seafront, to the marauding ocean. The lives and livelihoods of our fisherfolk, mostly living below the poverty line, are apparently of no concern to our budget makers either. And if maritime connectivity disappoints, Mr. Chairman, should we rely on the air? The regional connectivity scheme, which promised to give wings to the Aam Nagrik, to lift aspirations off the ground, make the skies accessible to all, yet today, many of those promises lie grounded. Nearly a decade on, at least 11 airports launched under UDAN have seen flights taper off or disappear altogether. Runways without aircraft, terminals without passengers, skies conspicuously empty. Last year, we were promised a modified UDAN, with 120 new destinations and 4 crore passengers. But in this budget, Mr. Chairman, UDAN does not even earn a mention. Not just that, but for fiscal year 24-25, a total of 81 airports owned and operated by the Airports Authority have incurred financial losses. Duopolies have led to declining service quality, with the Indigo fiasco exposing the vulnerabilities of our airline industry. When aviation policies cannot stay airborne beyond announcements, one must ask whether this government is still committed to democratizing the skies, as it claims, or rather, as the minister claimed last year. Mr. Chairman, if connectivity cannot move people physically, one would hope education might lift them socially and economically. But here too, we see a betrayal of promises. India speaks of global excellence while presiding over domestic neglect. The national education policy promised 6% of GDP for education. Years later, spending remains at barely 4%, with the union government contributing only 0.4% and leaving states to shoulder an unsustainable burden. The consequences are visible and damaging. Over 1.5 lakh schools lack electricity, thousands lack toilets, ramps, or basic facilities for children with disabilities, and the foundations of learning continue to crumble even as we advertise world-class universities. This neglect hits the most vulnerable the hardest. For scheduled castes, enrollment falls from 99% at the preparatory stage to 70% at the secondary level. For scheduled tribes, from 99% to just 67%. These numbers reveal a system where poverty pushes students out of classrooms and into premature work. We are told artificial intelligence will shape our future, yet only 52% of government schools have functional computers, just 58% have internet access. Where is artificial intelligence going to come to these schools? Technology without zero funding in the revised estimates. These announcements are like modern courtships. Promises without commitment. That's what this government does to us. At a time when farm distress, where is artificial intelligence going to come to these schools? These announcements are like modern courtships. Promises without commitment. That's what this government does to us. At a time when farm distress is deepening, the budget silence on revising the PM Kisan Nidhi disbursement speaks louder than any promise made elsewhere. हमारे किसानों की आय दोगुनी करने का वादा तो आपसे पूरा हो नहीं पाया। कम से कम उनकी सम्मान निधि ही बढ़ा दीजिए। पिछले 6 सालों से ये सिर्फ 6,000 रुपए पर ही अटकी हुई है। While there is an imperative need for breakthroughs in research and development and AI-driven agricultural technologies, paradoxically, funding allocations for agricultural research and education have dipped by 4.8% from the previous year's 10,466 crore, that's now to 9,967 crore, decreasing precisely when the finance minister is announcing new AI schemes. And frankly, Madam, touting a new AI app when the majority of our farmers can't afford fertilizers, harvesters, or tractors seems rather detached from reality, except of the virtual kind. Now, this budget speaks at length about crops from cashews to coconuts, yet ignores one of agriculture's most persistent concerns, pepper. Once hailed as black gold, the sector is now in distress in my state. In Kerala, which is one of the country's leading producers of pepper, output has fallen from 40,000 plus tons to 30,000 tons and is projected to decline by a further 28.7% in the foreseeable future. The uncomfortable truth, Mr. Chairman, is that our spice market faces such deep challenges today that if history repeated itself, the British might not even bother looting us for it, shrinking rather than strengthening our manufacturing base. This House has had this conversation far to reduce our dependence on China. We recite the same statistics, express the same concerns, and then pharmaceutical ingredients. While unemployment, India's anemic R&D investment, the data at the end of 2025 makes one thing unmistakably clear. With even rural unemployment has stagnated at 3.9%, of net sales, urban unemployment continues to rise. The result is predictable, 6.7% in December. Continued reliance on low-cost starting to concentrate, and life-saving biologics and frustrations far beyond the reach of most Indians in our cities, where public health spending and yet even the centre's flagship responses have failed to rise to the GDP target of 2.5%. Under the Pradhan Mantri without correcting regional imbalance and 41% of certified candidates secure R&D support, the sniper initiative risks sounding visionary while delivering exclusion. Now, all of these shortcomings in the sectors I've surveyed, in infrastructure, education, healthcare, might have been bearable if at least the economic burden were distributed equitably. But as per the UNDP Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index, India ranks the lowest of all BRICS countries at 130. The silent shock absorbers of this economy are the middle class. They are now cracking under the strain. The symbols of success we see today, smartphones, cars, lifestyle assets, are only sustained by EMIs, Mr. Chairman, for the middle class, leaving the Aam Aadmi little room for health insurance, for savings or medical emergencies. Credit cards are once a luxury or a convenience. They've now become a lifeline. Defaults rose 28% last year to 6,742 crore rupees, not because Indian households are reckless, but because they're running out of room to breathe. With 2.9 lakh crore rupees in outstanding dues and 10.5 crore cards in circulation, borrowing has become the price of staying afloat. Even as households struggle, the tax burden has quietly shifted onto them. Personal income tax now contributes over half of all direct taxes, while the corporate share declines, as I mentioned earlier. And while last year's budget at least acknowledged middle-class housing stress through the Swami Fund, this budget offers only silence. Inflation may look subdued on paper, but for citizens, the cost of living has merely been shifted. When the state fails to provide clean air, safe water, and uncontaminated food, households are forced to buy privately what should be public goods: air purifiers, water filters, basic safeguards. This burden is unequal, Mr. Chairman. The privileged can protect themselves, while the poor remain exposed. A nation cannot grow by exhausting the very people who sustain it. The Aam Aadmi, who are financing this government, are being sent deeply troubling signals on taxation. A one-time concession allowing special economic zone manufacturing units to sell domestically at reduced duties is little more than tokenism when the SEZ ecosystem itself is collapsing, with hundreds of zones shut and employment in free fall. More disturbing still is the withdrawal of income tax exemption on disability pensions for defence personnel. This move weakens social protection for disabled veterans who've risked their lives for our country and draws an indefensible line between service-related disabilities and abdication of the state's moral duty to those who have made such sacrifices for the nation. Now, I'd like to acknowledge that amid this disaster and disorder, there has been some measure of fiscal discipline. The fiscal deficit has edged down from 4.5% to 4.4%. Minister speaks of a further reduction to 4.3%, and that sounds reassuring on paper. But I've been in this House long enough, Mr. Chairman, to remember when her predecessor, the late Arun Jaitley, as Finance Minister, set a target of 3.5%. We're nowhere near that benchmark today, yet we seem eager to applaud for settling at a much higher number. Perspective matters, sir, and without it, these figures lose their meaning, especially when they fail the only test that truly counts, whether the Aam Aadmi has more money in his pocket, whether he has wages that keep pace with prices, whether he or she has a life that is becoming easier. Fiscal prudence cannot be celebrated in isolation when household budgets remain under strain and economic security is elusive for millions. In this budget, the Union government has once again doubled down on an infrastructure-led growth strategy, raising capital expenditure to 12.2 lakh crores on the assumption that public capex will crowd in private investment and generate jobs. But this promise has yet to materialize. In fact, it hasn't materialized at all during this government's tenure. Private investment has throughout remained sluggish. Labour-intensive sectors are crowded out by capital-heavy projects. Welfare spending has been compressed, and key subsidies and social sector allocations fall short of stated goals. The burden has increasingly been pushed onto the states without adequate devolution of tax revenue. Meanwhile, unemployment, particularly amongst educated youth, remains distressingly high, and capacity utilization continues to remain below levels that would trigger a genuine private investment cycle. In this context, the capex-centric approach appears less like a strategy for inclusive growth and more like a gamble that ignores weak demand, joblessness, and the lived economic distress of the ordinary citizen. Mr. Chairman, no nation can develop on slogans or headlines alone. India's investment in research and development remains stuck at 0.6% of GDP, not only below advanced economies, but even below several emerging ones. China invests about 2.4%, Brazil even over 1%, the US 3.5%, South Korea 5% of GDP. A country that aspires to be a manufacturing and knowledge powerhouse cannot afford to treat research and development as an afterthought. I would urge the Minister to elevate R&D as a national priority. Now, on urban cities, on our cities, it should be pointed out that the hesitancy in innovation is reflected in the Smart Cities mission, which has become a reminder of unfulfilled promises. A decade after Smart Cities was announced, deadlines have been repeatedly extended from June 23 to December 25, no real change on the ground. Claims of 96% completion certainly ring hollow for somebody from Thiruvananthapuram or Warangal or Silvassa or Port Blair, because they're all incomplete. Large parts of the northeast continue to lag, leaving even the Parliamentary Standing Committee unconvinced. Instead of transforming urban life, the mission has largely polished a few elite enclaves, while basic services for millions remain untouched. I can't not mention the new interim trade agreement with the United States, sir, because that has just come out after the minister's speech. It looks less like a free trade agreement than a pre-committed purchase agreement that overturns every principle of reciprocity. How can we speak of a reciprocal tariff of 18% on one side and 0% on the other? At a time when India's total bilateral trade with the US stands at roughly $130 billion, and we have a trade surplus of only $45 billion, we have surprisingly promised to buy $500 billion worth of American goods over 5 years. This effectively converts a surplus into a long-term deficit by executive assurance rather than by market demand. No major economy has ever neutralized its own trade leverage in this manner. While the US continues to impose import tariffs of up to 18%, we have committed ourselves, apparently according to this joint statement that I've been seeing here, joint US-India statement, to impose tariffs up to 18% on Indian exports, and we to slash tariffs to near zero levels, open agriculture, dilute data localization, soften intellectual property safeguards, and even redirect strategic energy imports, especially away from Russia, to meet purchase targets. Now, this is not strategic balancing, it is economic preemption. Parliament has neither been told how farmers, MSMEs, and domestic industry will be protected, nor why India has voluntarily surrendered its negotiating power without securing proportional market access. without securing proportional market access or policy space in return. I know the government will say, wait for the final agreement, it's coming in mid-March, but let them be aware these concerns exist right now, sir. Yes. The government's claim that India has secured a better deal than China, Vietnam or other Asian economies does not withstand scrutiny. While India has obtained a tariff reduction of 1 or 2 percentage points from them, no East Asian economy has agreed to deliberately dilute its trade surplus with the US through guaranteed purchase commitments. On the contrary, China, Vietnam and several ASEAN countries have actually expanded their trade surpluses with the US, even amid heightened trade tensions. And this ambiguity, Mr. Chairman, has a direct bearing on the credibility of the budget itself. When both the Minister of Commerce and Industry and the Minister of External Affairs were questioned on these commitments, they were really offered no clear explanation of their scale, timeline, or fiscal implications. Now, the reason I mention this in the context of the budget is that key budgetary assumptions on trade balances, external financing needs, and overall macroeconomic stability rest on information that the Parliament does not possess and has not been given. A budget framed amid such uncertainty is not just incomplete, it asks this House to approve numbers without knowing the obligations that may soon overtake them from this trade agreement. Now, I do want to say that when the two ministers play ping-pong with each other, saying it's not in their mandate to answer the question, each one attributes it to the other, then that looks like a rather disappointing game, because when no minister claims ownership of something like this, accountability disappears, and Parliament is left staring at a budget that conceals obligations that the government seems to lack the courage to admit openly. In short, Mr. Chairman, the real weakness of this government's budget lies in its implementation, where rhetoric is not matched by reality. Let me quote that famous verse once again by Mirza Ghalib, which I think perfectly captures our reality today as reflected in this budget and its aspirations. हमको मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, हमें मालूम है जन्नत की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल बहलाने के लिए गालिब ये ख्याल अच्छा है. That seems to be what we have had inflicted upon us. We know the reality behind these claims, these tall promises, these narratives of model governance, but they're not policies grounded in outcomes. They're carefully curated illusions. Glossy schemes, utopian projections, they might soothe the imagination, dil to behlata hai. But everyday life for the ordinary citizen of India has remained unchanged. Hope is repeatedly sold, but delivery remains perpetually deferred. Viksit Bharat by 2047 is an admirable ambition, safely more than 2 decades away. This budget offers no credible pathway to reach it. Instead of narrowing the gap, it widens it. Unemployment continues to rise. Poverty hardens. Jobs remain scarce. Wages remain stagnant. Small businesses, already gasping for relief, are smothered under layers of compliance, while informal workers, gig workers who sustain our economy with their labor are pushed further into invisibility and insecurity. Government promises railways, yet stations crumble. They speak of flight, yet Udan has flown away. Our pepper, once celebrated as black gold, withers under neglect. Our long coastline stretches endlessly, but is ignored when it comes to protecting it. Education is curtailed precisely when it should be expanded, while the rhetoric of world-class technology and AI grows louder. 1.5 lakh schools still function without electricity, yet Viksit Bharat is spoken of as if the lights are already on. When vision is severed from reality, it ceases to be aspiration and becomes merely an illusion. A truly Viksit Bharat will not be built on slogans, Mr. Chairman, not built on speeches or symbolism, but on delivery that reaches the last citizen of India. Turning promises into outcomes is not a favor, it is not a choice. It is our kartavya, it is your kartavya, may I say to the government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Jai Hind.
माननीय श्रीमती अपराजिता सारंगी जी.
It is my pleasure and privilege to talk about the Union budget for the financial year 26-27. Thank you, Chairman, sir, for giving me this opportunity. At the outset, I commend Honorable Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, for giving to this country of 1.4 billion people her 9th consecutive budget, a budget which reflects her commitment, the commitment of the government, the conviction of the government, and the consistency of the government. As I stand here to speak, I am reminded of a few words from Rigveda, the oldest of our Vedas. Sangachadhvam sangvadadhvam sangvo manansi janatam. हम साथ बोले, हम साथ चलें, हमारी भावना और हमारी सोच एक दिशा में हो. My dear colleagues, we are all moving towards one and only one goal in the country, and the goal is to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047. And I can say with all conviction at my command that this particular budget of the financial year 26-27 is definitely a very strong step in our common journey. For the sake of clarity, I must say, my dear friends, that our Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, framed the blueprint around 3 kartavyas. Number 1, to accelerate and sustain economic growth. Number 2, to fulfill the aspirations of the people and build their capacities. And number 3, to align with our core objective of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. बंधुगण, यह ऐतिहासिक बजट सिर्फ संख्याओं का संकलन नहीं है, यह विकसित भारत की यात्रा में हम सब के लिए एक माइलस्टोन है, एक निर्णायक मील का पत्थर है. यह हमारी आर्थिक स्थिरता, सुधार और हम सब के सामूहिक आत्मविश्वास का दस्तावेज है. My dear colleagues, this particular budget of the Union government comes at a time when India is actually moving fast in its growth trajectory, and we must accept and acknowledge this. This is the first budget of the second quarter of 21st century, and that's why it's a very important budget for all of us, for all 1.4 billion Indians. Friends, we are aware of the fact that in 2014, we were the 10th largest economy, and at this juncture, our micro fundamentals are very strong. We are the 4th largest economy, bypassing Japan. We are going to be the 3rd largest economy, bypassing Germany very soon, and our forest reserves are very high. Our exports have gone beyond $800 billion, and I must say here, we have been all listening about inflation rate. The inflation at this juncture, December 25 figure, we are at 1.7%. And here while I say this, I must say that between 2011 and 2014, the average inflation of this country was 9.8%. I must say this, and I think all of us sitting in this house must appreciate this. Friends, the unemployment rate, all of us have been talking about the unemployment rate. It's declining every day, and at this juncture, it is 4.8%. We must realize this. हमारा देश वैश्विक निवेशकों, फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए एक भरोसेमंद गंतव्य की तरफ उभर के आया है, और हम सबको समझना होगा कि इस तरह की जो आर्थिक स्थिति है, जब विश्व में हमारी प्रशंसा हो रही है, हम मजबूत जमीन पर खड़े हैं, यह कोई संयोग नहीं है. यह हमारे अनुशासित वित्तीय प्रबंधन, संरचनात्मक सुधारों और स्पष्ट नीति का प्रमाण है. आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की सोच, की दूरदर्शिता और मार्गदर्शन को मैं नमन करती हूँ। The analysis of the budget of financial year 26-27 makes it abundantly clear that the Indian government has chosen the path of long-term growth. And this is not growth by impulse, this is not short-term stimulus. This is possible because of sustained, continuous investment in infrastructure, in institutions, in industrial capacity and upskilling. We must realize this. And these four things which I talked of are extremely important when a country aspires to become a developed nation. As was told by Honorable Madam Sitharaman in her speech, the expenditure today stands at 53.5 lakh crore. We must remember this. And the fiscal deficit stands at 4.3% of the GDP. My dear friends, we are in a very difficult global settings. I think all of us are aware of this. All my esteemed colleagues who are present in this house, it's an age of global uncertainty. And in this age of fractured global order, the government of India has decided to keep building. Charai veti, we must remember this. There is a massive scale up in public capital expenditure. I remember in 2014, it was just 2 lakh crore. We must appreciate this. Rupees 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 has gone up to 11.2 lakh crore rupees in 2025-26. And now, with all pride, with all happiness as a citizen of the country, I can say that the public capital expenditure has gone up to 12.2 lakh crore rupees, which is 4.4% of the GDP, and it registers a 10% increase over the last year. And friends, we are aware of the fact that if the capital expenditure grows, then it definitely has a large multiplier effect on the economy. Urban transformation. Urban transformation is a very significant pillar of the budget. Madam Sitharaman talked about engines of growth. The cities, the big towns are today the engines of growth. And a wonderful concept was brought about and placed before all of us, the city economic region. City economic region focusing on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities have been thought about by the government. Rupees 5,000 crore will be given to this city economic region, every city economic region, over a period of 5 years to build infrastructure. And we know what will happen. Less reduced pressure on the mega cities and fostering balanced development in the process. All of us know that no country ever can actually become a developed nation without having manufacturing competitiveness, and our government has tried to give a substantial push to the manufacturing competitiveness idea. This will not only create jobs, but also in the long run help promote our exporting community. The allocation of rupees 10,000 crore to the biopharma sector will not only help our people take care of their healthcare needs, but also lead to huge exports. Similarly, there was mention of many important areas which I think we must be talking about wherever we are. India has really advanced forward. There is focus on semiconductor mission 2.0, nuclear sector, rare earth corridors, data centers, and electronics components mission, with a whopping 40,000 crore as the allocation. And I'm sure these investments will lead to less import dependency and make India future ready. I think these are things that we are thinking about our country, and I underscore the fact that we are intending to become Viksit Bharat by 2047, and that is why we have to be future ready. The provision of 4,000 e-buses is definitely going to enhance regional connectivity. My dear friends, 20 new national waterways, expanded road networks, freight corridors, 7 high-speed rail corridors and multimodal logistics system. These are giant leap towards a more competitive, resilient, confident and self-reliant Viksit Bharat by 2047. We may like it, we may not like it, but we need to accept it. My dear friends, I take this opportunity to convey our immense gratefulness to our Honorable Prime Minister for going for almost 9 free trade agreements and trade deal with a couple of countries in the last couple of years. Again, there would be critics, there would be naysayers, but I know to every action of Prime Minister Modi, there is an equal and opposite negative reaction from my right side. Free trade agreements and trade deal have been signed with New Zealand, UK, Oman, Australia, European Union consisting of 27 nations, and very recently with the US. And this is an indication of a particular thing which I think we need to appreciate. This is an indication of the fact that the government of India, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, knows how to navigate in a difficult world order. I talked about difficult global settings. We are aware of that. And in this difficult world order, the government of India for the past couple of years, about 10, 12 years, have acquired the ability, the capability, the talent to navigate successfully. In this budget, a number of customs duties and import duties have been withdrawn. And this is for good. This is to help the exporting community. Friends, I would like to give certain examples which I think all of us need to appreciate. We have allowed duty-free import of ingredients by seafood exporters, allowing 3% of freight on board value of exports to be imported duty-free by textile and leather goods, and allowing SEZ units to sell in domestic tariff area at concessional duty, and these are extremely progressive and pragmatic ways of strengthening our exporting community. My dear friends, our Prime Minister and our Finance Minister have been talking all the while about the micro, small and medium enterprises. I would say they are the backbone of Indian economy, extremely important, and they contribute 35.4% of the manufacturing output, about 49% of India's total exports, and around 31% of the national GDP. Now, with 7.47 crore MSMEs in the country, employing around 33 crore people, MSME has emerged as the second largest employer after agriculture. And our government, under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, recognizes this. And that is why rupees 10,000 crore have been allocated as SME Growth Fund. And there is a great concept, and the concept is nurturing the champion MSMEs. I think this is something very interesting, very innovative, and we all need to stand together and appreciate. Friends, a healthy India is a prosperous India. And here I must like to inform all of you, or rather help you recall, that Madam Nirmala Sitharaman allocated rupees 1.06 lakh crore for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in this budget. And this is a staggering 194% increase over the 2014-15 levels. In order to make our healthcare affordable and even accessible to many people, you know, the customs duties, the import duties have been withdrawn from 17 cancer drugs and drugs of many diseases which are rare by nature. I think this is something for which our government, Prime Minister Modi's government, needs to be commended and complimented. Now, my dear friends, could anybody think about AVGC, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics? This government is planning to raise about 2 million professionals by 2030 in AVGC sector. Absolutely out of the box idea, you may like it or not, but this is highly innovative and an out of the box idea of our government. Now here, the government will be supporting the Institute of Creative Technologies Mumbai to raise these professionals and to actually establish content creator labs in about 15,000 secondary schools and 500 colleges. It is very easy for me to read out, as my dear friend just did. When you are convinced about what your government is doing, you need not read out from the papers. I know what our government is doing and how my government is ensuring that India moves forward. I don't have to look into papers for data and statistics. We are convinced that the government is moving forward, and this confidence is coming out when we speak about the government's good works. Friends, there is a very interesting thing.
Ma'am, kindly address the chair.
Yeah, thank you. To ensure sustained economic growth, and also at the same time to keep fiscal deficit in check, is an interesting phenomenon. It's a challenge. And I'm extremely happy to inform the House that we recognize, we appreciate that this government has been doing that. Our growth momentum has been sustained, and at the same time, fiscal deficit is low, 4.3%, as I told earlier. This is a challenge which has been taken on by the government. The budget of financial year 26-27 is definitely pragmatic, pro-people, and balanced in nature. हमें सशक्त, आत्मनिर्भर और विकसित भारत बनाना है। बंधुगण, आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की सोच, उनके दिग्दर्शन, उनकी सकारात्मकता के सामने हम सब नतमस्तक हैं। मैं नमन करती हूं और उनके लिए दो पंक्तियां। मैं सोच भी बदलता हूं, मैं नजरिया भी बदलता हूं, मंजिल जाने तक का जरिया भी बदलता हूं, और अगर बदलता नहीं कुछ तो सिर्फ अपना लक्ष्य नहीं बदलता हूं, अपना पक्ष नहीं बदलता हूं। आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। कहना आसान है, करना कठिन, लेकिन हमारी सरकार आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के बलिष्ठ नेतृत्व में आगे बढ़ती जा रही है। आइए हम सब संग गच्छध्वम संग वदध्वम संग वो मनांसी जानताम, हम साथ चले, हम साथ बोले और हम सब की सोच और भावना एक दिशा में हो। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
माननीय श्री अखिलेश यादव जी।
मैं सबसे पहले सभापति महोदय आपका मैं धन्यवाद देता हूं कि मुझे आपने बजट पे बोलने का समय दिया है। मैं तीसरा सदस्य इस पे बोल रहा हूं। मैं भी में से पूर्व कांग्रेस पार्टी के नेता माननीय शशि थरूर जी जो बात कह रहे थे, उन्होंने बहुत सारे आंकड़े दिए हैं। सभापति महोदय, वही मिलते जुलते आंकड़े हमारे पास भी हैं। जब कभी जवाब आए तो शायद उन आंकड़ों का जवाब भी आए। और जब वो अपनी बातों को ख़त्म कर रहे थे तो वो एक शेर पढ़ के गए हैं, मिर्ज़ा गालिब का एक शेर पढ़ के गए हैं सभापति महोदय। सभापति महोदय, यही शेर अगर बीजेपी को पढ़ना होता तो बीजेपी कैसे पढ़ती? अगर यही शेर बीजेपी को पढ़ना पड़ता तो वो पढ़ते कि हमको मालूम है स्वर्ग की सच्चाई, लेकिन दिल को बहलाने के का गालिब ये ख्याल की जगह सोच अच्छा है। सभापति महोदय, यही फर्क है, सबका साथ सबका विकास। सभापति महोदय, बोलने से पहले मैं जब बजट को देख रहा था और अक्सर सरकार को पिछले कई सालों से चलता हुआ मैं देख रहा हूं, मैं कहना चाहता हूं क्यों झूठे ख्यालों में दिन रात करें, जो बनाते हैं हवा में बातों के महल, आओ उनसे कुछ जमीनी बात करें। सभापति महोदय, बजट आने से पहले और बजट आने के बाद पूरा देश और पूरे देश में ये बहस चल रही थी कि अमेरिका को लेकर के डील होने जा रही है। सभापति महोदय, मुझसे पहले अभी जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की माननीय सदस्य बोल रही थी, और भारतीय जनता पार्टी का ये पक्ष है कि हम लोगों ने दुनिया में बहुत सारे देशों से फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट कर लिया है। सभापति महोदय, मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार से जानना चाहूँगा, अभी कितने देश और बचे हैं जिससे आप फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं कर पाए हैं? कुछ ऐसे भी देश बचे होंगे शायद जिनसे आपकी इच्छा होगी कि हम फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट कर लें। और सभापति महोदय, का फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट हो भी जाते हैं, जो लोग कभी रुपए के बारे में बहुत चिंता करते थे, कभी कभी उम्र से, कभी कभी दूसरे लोगों की उससे जोड़ देते थे, इतने सब फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट होने के बाद और अमेरिका से डील नहीं ढील हुई है, उसके बाद हमारा रुपया कहां पहुंचेगा? और अगर यही डील होनी थी तो 11 महीने इंतजार क्यों कराया? अगर यही डील होनी थी सभापति महोदय, तो 11 महीने किस बात का इंतजार था? हमारे कारोबारियों को या हमारे जितने भी उद्योग से जुड़े लोग हैं, उनके साथ ये परेशानी क्यों? बजट पर सबसे पहला सवाल यही है कि डील पहले बनी है बजट। और बजट का हलवा यहां ज्यादा बटा के वहां। सभापति महोदय, स्वदेशी, आत्मनिर्भर, ये शब्द तो बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं, लेकिन जब डील हो गई है तो क्या इस बजट को लाने से पहले आत्मनिर्भरता और स्वदेशी को अपने अपने शब्दकोश से हटा दिया है, या इसको उल्टे अर्थ में विलोम शब्दकोश में डाल दिया है? और ये डील नहीं है जो हम आप सब समझ पा रहे हैं, शायद 70% के लोग ये नहीं समझ पा रहे होंगे, लेकिन पूरा देश समझ रहा है कि हमने अपना बाजार एक बार और खोल दिया है। $500 बिलियन का व्यापार एक तरफा, हमारे आत्मनिर्भरता कहां जाएगी? स्वदेशी नारा हमारा कहां जाएगा? हमारे देश की जनता भाजपा से कह रही है कि जहां तक हमें मालूम है डील एक तरफा नहीं होती है। क्या ये बनी वहां पहुंची यहां जहां जैसे कोई एक पक्षी मान रहा हो? जनता भाजपा से यह भी जानना चाहती है कि 0 बड़ा के 18। सभापति महोदय, भाजपा का समझौता गणित क्या यह है कि 18 0 के बराबर है? क्या 18 हमारा 0 के बराबर है? देश के किसानों, दुकानों, उद्योगों को बचाने के लिए खोखले शब्दों के अलावा भाजपा के पास कोई और सुरक्षा कवच या संरक्षण योजना है कि नहीं है? इसलिए मैं सभापति महोदय कहना चाहता हूं, ये बजट दिशाहीन है। इस बजट में कोई विजन नहीं है कि 2047 तक हमारा देश विकसित भारत बन जाएगा। और हम जैसे लोगों को, समाजवादियों को तो सरकार से पहले ही उम्मीद नहीं थी, और जिस सरकार से उम्मीद ना हो उसकी बजट से क्या उम्मीद होगी। इस बजट में पीडीए के लिए कुछ भी नहीं है। कोई योजना दलित, पिछड़ा, महिला, गरीब, अल्पसंख्यक या नवयुवक के विकास के लिए नहीं लाई गई है। ऐसा लग रहा है कि सरकार ने इनके बारे में सोचना ही छोड़ दिया है। और अगर जीडीपी हमारी 7% है और नॉमिनल जीडीपी की ग्रोथ केवल 8% है, जो कि लगभग 12% होनी चाहिए थी, इसके कारण लोगों के हाथ में कम पैसा है। और कारण ये भी लगता है कि हमारा प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं आ पा रहा है। जो लोग ये कहते हैं कि हम प्रति व्यक्ति आय बढ़ा रहे हैं, जो आंकड़े हमारे पास हैं, जो जानकारी हमारे पास है, वो आंकड़ा यही कहता है कि $3000 के लगभग प्रति व्यक्ति आय हमारी है। और अगर हम दुनिया से जब इतना ही जुड़ गए हैं तो 2025 की जो रैंकिंग है, हमारा स्थान 144वां है, 144th है। तो जहां हम इतना 10, 11, 12 साल से हम इतने बजट ला रहे हैं, क्या हमारे पर कैपिटा इनकम लोगों की नहीं बढ़ पाई? और सदन में, इसी सदन में कई बार ये पूछा गया कि जो लोग राशन प्राप्त कर रहे हैं, गरीबी रेखा से नीचे हैं, कम से कम उनकी पर कैपिटा इनकम क्या, ये तो बताना ही चाहिए सरकार को। और पिछड़ेपन को दूर करने के लिए कोई विजन नहीं दिखता इस बजट में। जैसे जब बजट आता है तो बजट में ढूंढते हैं हम लोग कि हमारे स्टेट के लिए क्या और खास नया आया होगा। उत्तर प्रदेश जैसा प्रदेश जहां पर डबल इंजन की सरकार को बहुत कुछ कहा जाता है कि डबल इंजन की सरकार है, हम विकास भी डबल करेंगे, लेकिन मैं देखता हूं उत्तर प्रदेश के लिए कोई खास योजना ऐसी नहीं आई है जिससे उत्तर प्रदेश के 25 करोड़ लोगों को कुछ मुख्य धारा से जोड़ा जाए। वैसे तो बड़ी बड़ी योजनाएं बताई जा रही हैं कि हमारे कई फ्रेट कॉरिडोर्स बन रहे हैं, वाटरवेज बन रहे हैं, एक्सप्रेसवेज बन रहे हैं, लेकिन उत्तर प्रदेश जहां से प्रधानमंत्री जी आते हैं, भविष्य में जो बनेंगे एक्सप्रेसवे, लेकिन भारत सरकार के बजट से कोई भी अभी एक्सप्रेसवे वहां पर नहीं बना। अगर कोई बना हो, नया बन रहा हो, बड़ा बन रहा हो तो बताएं। और जो बने भी हैं वो उस मानक, उस क्वालिटी के नहीं हैं जिस क्वालिटी के आज विकसित भारत के एक्सप्रेसवे होने चाहिए। जो लोग भ्रष्टाचार पे बड़े बड़े सवाल उठाते हैं, वो कम से कम अपनी सड़कों को देखें, अपने एक्सप्रेसवेज को देखें कि उन्होंने क्या बना करके खड़ा इतने हजारों करोड़ रुपए खर्च करने के बाद। इनके सबसे पहले प्रधानमंत्री अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी, उनके नाम से कोई एक्सप्रेसवे बन रहा था। सभापति महोदय, हम लोगों ने अखबारों में पढ़ा, कई लोग स्टेटमेंट भी देते हैं कि हम एक्सप्रेसवे बना रहे हैं। उनके नाम से बनने के साथ साथ उनका नाम भी बदल दिया। पहले वो चंबल एक्सप्रेसवे बन रहा था, फिर अटल जी के नाम से एक्सप्रेसवे बन रहा था। लगता है वो जमीन पर नहीं उतरा है, वो केवल कागजों पे बन रहा था। तो ये तो एक्सप्रेसवे की बात हुई। सबसे बड़ा सवाल ये है कि किसान को लेकर के इन्होंने कहा कि किसान की हम आय दोगुनी कर देंगे। आज हमारा किसान इस उदारीकरण में कहाँ खड़ा है? जिस किसान को लेकर के पूरे देश के सभी राजनीतिक दल चिंतित रहते हैं, इस डील के बाद हमारे किसानों का हाल क्या होगा? और जब सब कुछ विदेश से ही आएगा तो हमारा किसान भारत में क्या उगाएगा, जमीन पर क्या होगा और क्या बेच पाएगा? सभापति महोदय, सरकार ने बड़ा बजट पेश किया, कहा कि हम एग्रीकल्चर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर तैयार करेंगे, एग्रीकल्चर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से हम मंडियां तैयार करेंगे, बाजार तैयार करेंगे। एमएसपी लागू करेंगे। हमारे किसान जब काले कानून के खिलाफ लड़ रहे थे, बड़ी संख्या में जान चली गई, उसके बाद सरकार कहीं पीछे हटी और उन्होंने काले कानून वापस लिए। लेकिन आज भी किसानों को जो कानूनी गारंटी मिलनी चाहिए वो अभी तक एमएसपी की कानूनी गारंटी सरकार नहीं दे पाई है। और जो तेज क्रॉप और हॉर्टिकल्चर क्रॉप और दूध को लेकर के सरकार दावा करती है कि हम सब्जियां इतना, हॉर्टिकल्चर क्रॉप्स हमारी इतनी ग्रो कर गई हैं, हम दुनिया में इतना पैदा कर रहे हैं। दूध के जब आंकड़े बताते हैं कि दुनिया में हम दूध का उत्पादन इतना कर रहे हैं, और अगर आपका बजट ही विकसित भारत का बजट है, तो हमारे हॉर्टिकल्चर क्रॉप्स और जो हमारा किसान दूध का उत्पादन कर रहा है, दूध का उत्पादन हो रहा है, उसके लिए एमएसपी की गारंटी कब देंगे आप लोग? और गारंटी हम लोग इसलिए मांग रहे हैं क्योंकि उसको घर कैसे बनाएगा, घर कैसे चलाएगा, अगर उसको लाभ नहीं मिलेगा, बच्चों को कैसे पढ़ाएगा, अपनी बेटियों को हंसी खुशी विदा कैसे कर पाएगा? और इधर तो जहां फसल की कीमत नहीं मिल पा रही है, सभापति महोदय, सोने के भाव कहां पहुंच गए हैं? पहले गरीब सोचता था जब हम अपनी बेटी की विदा करेंगे तो कुछ सोने का एक सामान खरीद करके दे देंगे उसको। जैसे जैसे बीजेपी की सरकार चली और आगे बढ़ती गई, 12 साल ऐसे हैं आ गए कि अब तो चांदी तो दूर, अगर यही सरकार चलती रही तो लोहे पर पीतल चढ़ाकर भी गरीब अपनी बेटी की विदाई नहीं करा पाएगा। कैसे अपने भविष्य के लिए 2 पैसे जमा कर पाएगा? मतलब आज क्या खाएगा, कल के लिए क्या बचा पाएगा? ये किसानों के बड़े सवाल हैं। भाजपाई किसानों को लाभ नहीं पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, ये किसी और को लाभ पहुंचाना चाहते हैं। कुछ अदृश्य लोग हैं जिनको लाभ पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि इनका बजट, जो बजट बनाते हैं, वो आम जनता का ना उसमें जिक्र है ना फिक्र रहती है। और अगर फिक्र होती उनको तो किसान की खाद समय पर मिल जाती उन्हें, उनको बीज समय पर मिल जाता, सस्ती बिजली उपलब्ध हो जाती, सिंचाई या सिंचाई मुफ्त हो जाती थी। और मुझे याद है सभापति महोदय, समाजवादी सरकार में हम लोगों ने किसानों की सिंचाई मुफ्त करने के भी फैसले लिए। कीटनाशक दवाइयां कितनी महंगी हैं और सरकार ने किसानों को अपने हाल पे छोड़ दिया। मंडियों पे कहीं कोई खरीद नहीं है, और अगर खरीद हुई है तो सरकार बताए कि धान, आलू या गेहूं की खरीद में तो मिल जाती है उसको कीमत, लेकिन धान और आलू जैसी फसलों पर कोई सरकार कीमत नहीं दे पा रही है। महंगाई बेतहाशा बढ़ने पर भी इस बजट में जनता को टैक्स में न छूट देना टैक्स शोषण है। अमीरों के काम कारोबार और घूमने फिरने पर 10 तरह की छूटें दी गई हैं, लेकिन बेकारी बेरोजगारी से जूझ रहे लोगों की उम्मीदों की थाली खाली है। मध्यम वर्ग अपने आप को ठगा महसूस कर रहा है। शोषित, वंचित, गरीब व्यक्ति जहां था वैसे भी नीचे जाता दिख रहा है। इस बजट ने उसके चादर में पैबंद लगाने की जगह उसे और चिथड़ा कर दिया है, क्योंकि सामाजिक सुरक्षा केवल शब्दों की औपचारिकता रह गई है। किसान, मजदूर, श्रमिक, कारोबारी, छोटा दुकानदार अपने लिए मिली राहत को दूरबीन से देखकर ढूंढ रहा है, और इसीलिए भाजपा का हर बजट 1/20 का बजट मानते हैं, क्योंकि वो 5% लोगों के लिए ही होता है। अच्छे बजट की होती हैं 3 पहचान: गरीब की तरक्की, खुशहाली और मुस्कान। शायद इस बजट ने तीनों चीजों को छीनने का काम किया गरीबों से। दूसरा विषय, स्वास्थ्य को लेकर के बहुत हमारा गरीब समय समय पर परेशान रहता है। स्वास्थ्य को लेकर के जो ठोस कदम सरकार को उठाने चाहिए वो सभापति महोदय सरकार नहीं उठाती दिख रही है, और जितना भी स्वास्थ्य सेवाएं हैं वो ठप होती चली जा रही हैं। मैं उत्तर प्रदेश की बता सकता हूं, मुझे याद है सभापति महोदय, पहला जो भारत सरकार और प्रदेश सरकार को मिलकर के पहला हॉस्पिटल मेडिकल कॉलेज शाहजहांपुर का बना था, जिस समय भारतीय जनता पार्टी के उस समय के स्वास्थ्य मंत्री और मैंने मिलकर के उसका उद्घाटन किया था। उसके बाद जो प्रचार में तो ये बहुत आगे हैं, प्रचार में तो ये कहते हैं कि हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में हर हॉस्पिटल, हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में एक हॉस्पिटल या मेडिकल कॉलेज, लेकिन सच्चाई तो ये है कि इन हॉस्पिटलों में इलाज नहीं है, दवाई नहीं है, ऑपरेशन के लिए कहाँ जाना पड़ता है, भटकना पड़ता है। और जिस तरीके से अभी जिन लोगों ने इंश्योरेंस या LIC में किस्त दी होगी वो जानते होंगे कि महंगाई कम नहीं हुई है, महंगाई बढ़ी है, किस्तें बढ़ गई हैं। उदाहरण के लिए दिल्ली के एम्स के लिए 5,600 करोड़ रुपए और आयुष्मान भारत के लिए पूरे देश के लिए सरकार ने जो बजट रखा है वो 4,700 करोड़ रुपए है। सुनते हैं पहले उपवन में हर ऋतु में बहार गाती थी, कलियों का तो कहना ही क्या, मिट्टी में खुशबू आती थी। ये भी ज्ञात हमें उपवन में कुछ ऐसे भौरे आए थे, सारा चमन कर दिया मरघट, अपने साथ जहर लाए थे। लेकिन अगर चमन वाले ही भौरों के रंग ढंग अपनाएं, माली तुम ही फैसला कर दो, हम किसको दोषी ठहराएं। सभापति महोदय, मैं उत्तर प्रदेश से आता हूं, जहां पर प्रधान संसदीय क्षेत्र है। राजमाता पूजनीय अहिल्याबाई होलकर जी, उनकी मूर्ति थी, उसको बुलडोजर से तोड़वा दिया। सभापति महोदय, कोई कल्पना कर सकता है एक मणिकर्णिका घाट जो हमारी पौराणिक पहचान रही, सदियों से हमारी विरासत की पहचान रही, सनातनी काशी की विरासत रही, वहां पे इनकी सरकार ने प्रधान संसदीय क्षेत्र में बुलडोजर चला करके हमारी पूजनीय अहिल्याबाई होलकर की मूर्ति को इन्होंने तोड़ने का काम किया। और सभापति महोदय, केवल एक मूर्ति नहीं, वहां पर अगर हम गिनती करेंगे, 1 नहीं, 2 नहीं, 3 नहीं, 4 नहीं, 5 नहीं, 6 नहीं, 7 नहीं, लगभग 100 मंदिरों को तोड़ने का काम इसी सरकार में हुआ है। केवल मंदिर नहीं तोड़े गए सभापति महोदय, एक एंटीक बेल डोनेटेड बाय नेपाल नरेश, जो घंटा बजता था, सभापति महोदय, जो घंटा बजता था, नेपाल नरेश जिन्होंने गिफ्ट किया था, वो घंटा भी लापता है। केवल घंटा ही लापता नहीं है, सभापति महोदय, नमामि गंगा को लेकर के हमारे कानों में अभी भी वो बातें गूंजती हैं कि माँ गंगा ने मुझे बुलाया है। क्या बात है कि पिछले 11 साल से माँ गंगा ने बुलाया ही नहीं किसी को। माँ गंगा बह रही हैं, जो उसके पैरामीटर्स हैं, जिस पैरामीटर्स को हर दिन नापा जाता है, उसमें डिसॉल्व ऑक्सीजन, COD, BOD और तमाम पैरामीटर्स, आज किस हालत में है माँ गंगा। कोई कह रहा था कि अब गंगा बहकर के दूर तक जाएंगी, लेकिन शायद वो ये नहीं जानते होंगे कभी कभी उल्टी गंगा भी बहती है। जब उल्टी बहेगी तो यूपी के आते आते आप बाहर हो जाएंगे। सभापति महोदय, नमामि गंगा, माँ गंगा में जुड़ने वाली नदियाँ, वरना नदी को एक संरक्षण कैसे हो, ब्यूटिफिकेशन कैसे हो, रिवर फ्रंट कैसे बने, उसकी शुरुआत की थी। लेकिन सभापति महोदय, इनकी बुलडोजर सरकार ने उसका काम रोक दिया। काली नदी किस हालत में है? यमुना के बारे में दिल्ली की सरकार जब बनानी थी तो कहा कि हम दुनिया का सबसे बेहतर रिवर फ्रंट बनाएंगे यमुना पर। इसी राजधानी में कहा गया। आज बताइए यमुना की हालत क्या है? और अगर यमुना दिल्ली में गंदी हो रही है तो ये बह करके जब यूपी जाती है तो मथुरा में भी गंदी है। और थोड़ा बहुत साफ गंगा इसलिए हो जाती है क्योंकि जब चंबल का पानी उसमें जुड़ता है, थोड़ी बहुत यमुना साफ हो जाती है। उसके बाद यमुना में भी कोई सफाई का सरकार ने इंतजाम नहीं किया। और आज भी मैं कहता हूं, देश का सबसे अच्छा रिवर फ्रंट अगर कहीं बना है तो लखनऊ में बना है, गोमती रिवर फ्रंट। जो लोग ये कहते हो कि दूसरा रिवर फ्रंट अच्छा है, मैं उनसे कहूंगा कभी लखनऊ के रिवर फ्रंट पर भी घूम करके आइए, तब आपको मालूम पड़ेगा कि रिवर फ्रंट क्या होता है। 26 जनवरी इसी वर्ष मैंने एक प्रतिष्ठित अखबार को पढ़ा और उसमें देखा मैंने कि हाई यूरेनियम इन इंडियाज ग्राउंड वाटर सैंपल्स लिए गए हैं। एक्सपर्ट्स वार्न कर रहे हैं कि सेवरल हेल्थ रिस्क हैं उससे। लेड पॉल्यूशन अलार्मिंग इन 69 रिवर्स इन इंडिया कंटेमिनेटेड, रिवर्स आर कंटेमिनेटेड। हमारे पानी में पेस्टिसाइड है, इंडस्ट्रियल वेस्ट है, अनसेफ है ड्रिंकिंग के लिए। हमारी नदियों में मरकरी है, डेंजरस लेवल। और जितनी भी हमारी वाटर बॉडीज हैं इंडस्ट्रियल टाउन्स के आसपास, सब में टॉक्सिक है, मरकरी है, बड़े पैमाने पे डेंजरस है पानी वहां का। और कई जगह इंडस्ट्री का सीधा सीधा वेस्ट जा रहा है। आर्सेनिक लेवल का सोच ही नहीं सकते हम लोग, जो मानक है उससे कई गुना ज्यादा है। ये तो हमारे देश का पानी है जो नदियों में बह रहा है, जो अंडरग्राउंड वाटर बन रहा है हमारा। ठीक ही कहा हमारे माननीय सदस्य ने कि जो संपन्न हैं, प्रिविलेज्ड हैं, वो लोग तो पानी साफ करने की मशीन खरीद सकते हैं। हमारा गरीब क्या खरीदेगा? गरीब की हेल्थ को कितनी परेशानी और रिस्क है। यहां तक कि अंतर्राष्ट्रीय प्लेटफॉर्म पर हमारे देश को भी सुनना पड़ा एक प्रतिष्ठित चैनल पर कि आपके देश में इन्वेस्टमेंट क्यों आएगा, क्योंकि वहां आ ही नहीं सकता है क्योंकि आपकी हवा खराब है। सोचिए, देश का पानी खराब हो, और ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं, पानी खराब सरकार को मालूम है, नहीं मालूम है, लेकिन जो प्राइवेट कंपनियां हैं जिनको अपना पानी बेचना है, तो वो बता रही है कि आपके भारत के पानी में क्या क्या है। और ये बात गलत है तो सरकार ऐसी कंपनियों पर प्रतिबंध क्यों नहीं लगाते हैं कि इस तरह अपनी कंपनियों का सामान बेचने के लिए झूठा प्रचार कर रही हैं। जो चर्चा होने लगती है हवा खराब है, हालांकि उत्तर प्रदेश आते आते सरकार की भी हवा खराब हो जाती है। सरकार सबको डराती है, लेकिन सरकार को कोई नमस्कार न करे उसको नहीं डरा सकते। हमने तो कहा कि तुम लखनऊ से गए हो, लखनऊ का जो अदब है, लखनऊ का जो हमारी पहचान है, कम से कम अगर नमस्कार नहीं कर सकते तो आदाब तो कर ही देते वहां जाकर। जो लोग पिछड़े पीडीए उनके पक्षधर बनते हैं, आरक्षण को लेकर के कहते हैं कि हम आरक्षण देंगे, उनकी सरकारों में क्या अपॉइंटमेंट हो रहे हैं। मुझे याद है इससे पहले जब बहस हुई थी सदन में, वहां से बात निकली थी कि किस तरीके से अपॉइंटमेंट हो रहे हैं यूनिवर्सिटीज और कॉलेजेस में। मैं उसी पे कुछ कहना चाहता हूं। ये अपनी अपनी किस्मत है, कुछ कलियां खिलती हैं ऊपर और दूसरी मुरझा जाती हैं झुके झुके जीवन भर भूं पर। मानव बदकिस्मत है, लेकिन क्या वे महक नहीं सकती हैं? अगर मिले अवसर अंगारे सी क्या दहक नहीं सकती हैं? जिस तरीके से आरक्षण पर खिलवाड़ हो रही है उसकी कोई कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था। विकसित भारत तभी विकसित भारत माना जाएगा जब हमारे पिछड़े, दलित, आदिवासी, अल्पसंख्यक मुसलमान भाई को बराबर का हक मिलेगा। और जब तक हक नहीं मिल रहा उनको, तब तक शायद विकसित भारत का देखने का सपना आधा अधूरा है। अभी अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है माइग्रेशन को लेकर के, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 16 जनवरी को एक फैसला पलट दिया। हाई कोर्ट के फैसले को पलटते हुए फैसला सुनाया कि यदि आरक्षित वर्ग का कोई उम्मीदवार बिना किसी छूट का लाभ लिए अगर अनारक्षित वर्ग से ज्यादा नंबर प्राप्त करे तो उसे अनारक्षित वर्ग में सेलेक्ट किया जाएगा। क्या सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी कह रहा है? हमारे सरकार की भी नियत है कि सबको आरक्षण मिलना चाहिए जिनका हक हो। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी भी कहते हैं हम पिछड़े हैं। हमारे दूसरे नंबर के नेता, क्योंकि उन्हें सनातनी बनना था, अपना धर्म बदल के दूसरा धर्म लिख लिया उन्होंने। तो कम से कम पिछड़ों का तो ख्याल करिए आप। जब पिछड़ों का ख्याल करोगे तभी आपका देश विकसित बनेगा, भारत विकसित बनेगा। अगर आप पिछड़ों को छोड़ देंगे, दलितों को छोड़ देंगे, आदिवासियों को छोड़ देंगे, अल्पसंख्यक भाइयों को छोड़ देंगे, तो आप कैसे विकसित भारत बनाएंगे? एक आर्थिक बराबरी है, दूसरी सामाजिक बराबरी है। और मुझे लगता है बजट से न आर्थिक गैर बराबरी दूर हो रही है, न सामाजिक गैर बराबरी दूर हो रही है। और इनकी सरकार में कितना भेदभाव है। सभापति महोदय, केवल चुनाव जीतने के लिए सोचिए। एक 72 साल के बुजुर्ग पर मोहित खान साहब, आप जानते होंगे आपके क्षेत्र में,
मदरसा टाउन एरिया।
सभापति महोदय, बीजेपी का लक्ष्य केवल है चुनाव जीतना। इन आंकड़ों से क्या मतलब? और आंकड़ों के अगर ये ठीक आंकड़े होते सभापति महोदय, तो इन्होंने कहा था कि बुलेट ट्रेन हम 1 लाख करोड़ की बनाएंगे। आज बुलेट ट्रेन 2 लाख करोड़ की कैसे हो गई? सभापति महोदय कहा कि हम 1 लाख करोड़ में बनाएंगे बुलेट ट्रेन। और बुलेट ट्रेन केवल संपन्न स्टेटों में क्यों? हमारे बंगाल, बिहार और यूपी में क्यों नहीं? और अगर आप हाई स्पीड बुलेट ट्रेन लाना चाहते हैं तो 1 लाख करोड़ का बजट दिया था, 2 लाख करोड़ बजट हो गया। यूपी में जब बनेगा तो पता नहीं कब बनेगा, कौन जानता है कब बनेगा। चुनाव जीतने के लिए इनकी सरकार के लोगों ने झूठा फंसाया।
ये सब जुमला है, जुमला।
झूठा फंसाया। और इसलिए फंसाया कि वो मुस्लिम है, इसलिए फंसाया। 72 वर्ष के बुजुर्ग को 19 महीने जेल में रखा गया। समाजवादी पार्टी को बदनाम किया गया। और केवल इसलिए कि चुनाव जीत जाए आप, अयोध्या का चुनाव जीत जाए, क्योंकि अयोध्या का चुनाव हारे थे आप लोग। मैं अयोध्या की महान जनता का धन्यवाद देता हूं कि उन्होंने कम्युनल पॉलिटिक्स का समापन किया है। वो विकास के रास्ते पे जाना चाहते हो। मैंने पहले भी कहा, फिर कहता हूं, आपका विकास अयोध्या का तो मैं जानता हूं कैसा है, क्योंकि लोगों ने काशी को क्यूटिव बनते नहीं देख पाए। अगर हम सब सदस्य हैं और हमारे प्रधान सांसद के संसदीय क्षेत्र को अगर हम क्यूटिव न बना पाए, आप विरासत मिटा रहे हैं। वहां पर कई सौ पुरानी दाल मंडी, जिसमें केवल वोट नहीं मिलता, इसलिए दाल मंडी को आप डिमोलिश कर देंगे आप।
अल्पसंख्यक बनारस।
और इसको अयोध्या को जीतने के लिए 72 वर्ष के एक व्यक्ति को झूठा केस लगाया, झूठा फंसाया, जेल भेज दिया। और न केवल उसको जेल भेजा, बल्कि उसकी दुकानें और उसकी बेकरी पर भी बुलडोजर चला दिया आपने। क्या डेमोक्रेसी में हमारे बुलडोजर का कोई स्थान है क्या? हाई कोर्ट कहता है कि आप फैसला सुना सकते हैं क्या? कोर्ट कहता है कि आप कौन हो गए फैसला सुनाने वाले लोग? और फिर आप लोग कहते हैं कि हर घर जल और नल। सभापति महोदय, इन्हीं के विधायक ने मंत्री जी को घेर लिया। इन्हीं के विधायक ने मंत्री जी का अपहरण कर लिया। और ये कहते हैं कि हम तो, हमारे कोई अराजकता नहीं है। ये कहते हैं इन्वेस्टमेंट लाएंगे, हम एमओयू साइन करेंगे। सभापति महोदय, देश के प्रधानमंत्री, देश के सबसे बड़े उद्योगपति उत्तर प्रदेश पहुंचे थे। एमओयू साइन किए गए, लाखों करोड़ के एमओयू साइन हुए, और एमओयू साइन होने के बाद जमीन पर कितना उतरा ये बताए सरकार। एमओयू के बाद सरकार बताए कितना जमीन पर उतरा है। इन्होंने जब कश्मीर का 370 हटा रहे थे सभापति महोदय, हाँ ना, बजट ही है ये एमओयू में, क्योंकि इंसेंटिव अगर नहीं देंगे तो कौन आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट लाएगा। ये राज्य का विषय नहीं है सभापति, राज्य से प्रधानमंत्री आते हैं। और आपने ये कहा कि प्रधानमंत्री के क्षेत्र में हमने देश में कहा कि हमने 1000 किलोमीटर मेट्रो बिछाई है। आपने देश के प्रधानमंत्री के क्षेत्र में क्यों नहीं मेट्रो बिछाई? क्यों नहीं बिछाई आपने? आपने देश के प्रधानमंत्री के क्षेत्र को एक्सप्रेस वे से क्यों नहीं जोड़ा आपने? क्योंकि आपके पास बजट नहीं है। अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी के आपने नाम से एक्सप्रेस वे क्यों नहीं बनाया, बताइए आप? ये बजट नहीं है आपके पास। अयोध्या एयरपोर्ट घोटाला, एयरपोर्ट बनते ही पानी टपकने लगा। एयरपोर्ट तो दिल्ली का है, बजट तो दिल्ली ने दिया होगा। अयोध्या रेलवे स्टेशन, हमारे कन्नौज का रेलवे स्टेशन बनते ही गिर गया, और गिरने के बाद अभी तक नहीं बन पाया। तो ये बजट का हिस्सा नहीं है क्या? आप वाटरवेज बात कर रहे हैं, गंगा साफ नहीं है, आप पानी का जहाज कहां ले जाएंगे? बिहार में जाकर के रुक जाएगा। पिछली बार भी एक पानी का जहाज चला था, बनारस से जाते ही बिहार में रुक गया, जाकर के पटना भी नहीं पहुंच पाया। रामपथ, सीवर लाइन स्मार्ट सिटी का हिस्सा है। आपका स्मार्ट सिटी कैसा है? इंदौर में पानी पीने से कितने लोगों की जान चलेगी सभापति महोदय? और कोई शहर बता दीजिए जहां कूड़ों का ढेर ना हो। जब देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी ने झाड़ू उठाया हो और उसके बाद भी कहीं कूड़ा ना हटे सभापति महोदय। भजन संध्या स्थल घोटाला हुआ, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मीडिया सेंटर बनाया, उसमें भी पानी गिर रहा है। लाइट सजावट की चाइनीज आई हैं। हमारे देश का कारोबार कैसे उलझा दिया आपने? चीन और अमेरिका और थोड़ा बहुत रशिया, विदेश नीति तो असफल हुई है, लेकिन हमारा बाजार को भी पूरा बेच दिया। और चीन के सवाल पर सभापति महोदय, चीन हमारी जमीन पर भी निगाहें रखे हुए है और हमारे बाजार पे भी। इसलिए जो सरकार फैसला ले बड़ी सावधानी से ले। मैं कितनी बातें बताऊं, वहां पर
सेना जमीन ले लिया,
जमीनें जाने कहां चली गई हैं। इसलिए सभापति महोदय, ये बजट दिशाहीन है। ये 2047 में हमारा विकसित भारत तो नहीं बनेगा। और जिस तरीके से बेरोजगारी बढ़ी है, बेरोजगारी को लेकर के जो चिंता रही, हमेशा रहती थी, और जो सरकार ने बड़े बड़े फैसले भी लिए थे, जानकारी दी थी कि हम बेरोजगारी ऐसे दूर कर लेंगे। मेक इन इंडिया का जो सपना दिखाया था, आखिरकार मेक इन इंडिया का सपना कहाँ पूरा हो पा रहा है? मेक इन इंडिया का जो शेर था वो जंग खा रहा है सभापति महोदय। जो योजना लेकर के आए थे, एम्प्लॉयमेंट लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव्स, सरकार बताए कि हमें कितना उसमें लाभ पहुंचा है। 2024-2025 के बजट में इन योजनाओं के लिए 33,000 करोड़ रुपए आवंटित किए गए थे, लेकिन खर्च कितना हुआ? 1700 करोड़ रुपया केवल। एक आपने पिछली बार सपना दिखाया था कि इंटर्नशिप की योजना, इंटर्नशिप वाली योजना जो घोषित की, जिसके लिए 10,000 करोड़ रुपए आवंटित किए थे आपने, लेकिन उसमें खर्च कितना हुआ है? 500 करोड़ रुपया। और जो लक्ष्य रखा था आपने रखा था 5 साल में 1 करोड़ लोगों को, लेकिन इसमें आए कितने? 1,65,000 लोगों ने फॉर्म भरा, ऑफर दिया उन्होंने, लेकिन फाइनली जिसमें ऑफर जिसका सिलेक्ट हुआ वो केवल 16,000 लोगों को काम पहुंचा है। सोचिए, हमारा देश इतना बड़ा, जहां करोड़ों को आप इस योजना से जोड़ना चाहते थे, केवल 16,000 लोग जाएंगे उसमें। ये आपको बेरोजगारी खत्म करने की योजना है आपकी? माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के सदन के सामने स्थिति स्पष्ट करनी चाहिए कि मनरेगा एक महत्वपूर्ण योजना थी जिसमें गरीबों को ग्राम स्तर पर रोजगार मिलता था, राइट टू वर्क के अनुसार थी। इस योजना को समाप्त करते हुए आपने क्या नाम रखा है? बीबी राम जी। और हमारे राम जी कहाँ बैठे हैं? कहाँ है हमारे राम जी?
पीछे बैठे,
जिन्हें बचपन से हम देखते आए राम जी। ये हमारी खुशकिस्मती है कि राम जी सदन में बैठे हैं, लेकिन आप राम जी का अपमान कर रहे हैं। आपको उनको यहाँ नहीं बैठा सकते, आपको यहाँ बैठाना चाहिए नंबर 2 पर। अगर आप सच्चे मायने में सभापति महोदय बीपी राम जी,
आप कृपया
देखिए वित्त मंत्री राम जी को ही नहीं जानती हैं।
अखिलेश जी
हे भगवान, हम क्या करें अब?
अखिलेश जी आप कृपया बजट पे आ जाइए। आप कृपया बजट पे आ जाइए अखिलेश जी।
सभापति महोदय
बजट पे आइए, बजट पे आइए।
एक मिनट क्या बोले? फिर बोलना दोबारा।
नहीं, आप बजट
क्या बोलिए? नहीं, सभापति जी बोलिए।
नहीं
सभापति महोदय,
नहीं
जिन्होंने गोली चलाई वो आपका राम मंदिर बना रहे हैं। सभापति महोदय, जिन्होंने गोली चलवाई वो राम मंदिर बनवा रहे हैं। अगर कुछ पता ना हो तो जाकर के पूछ लेना, पता कर लेना। आधी अधूरी जानकारी के साथ मत आया करो यहाँ पर। अब आप बताइए सभापति महोदय, बीवी राम जी नाम बदल दिया आपने। यूपी जैसा बड़ा स्टेट, उसको क्या मिलेगा अब, जहां पर 1000 ग्राम सभाएं अर्बन हो गई हैं। जब 1000 ग्राम सभाएं अर्बन हो गई हैं और 40% व्यय प्रदेश सरकारों पर डाल दिया गया है, ये स्कीम कैसे चलेगी आपकी? मैंने पहले ही कहा था कि एमएसपी की लीगल गारंटी मिलनी चाहिए। और जिस तरीके से किसान आत्महत्या कर रहा है, एनसीआरबी के आंकड़े सरकार के पास होंगे कि किसान कितनी आत्महत्या कर रहा है। जिन्होंने ये कहा कि 2022 तक हम दोगुनी आय कर देंगे। आप बताइए, आलू की पैदावार की क्या आय दोगुनी हो गई? धान की पैदावार करने वाले की आय दोगुनी हो गई। आपको गाय से बहुत प्रेम है। हमारे क्षेत्र में खुद एक काऊ मिल्क प्लांट बना, यूपी का पहला काऊ मिल्क प्लांट। आपकी सरकार ने उसको बंद कर दिया। आप कहते गाय की सेवा करो, लेकिन पहला यूपी का काऊ मिल्क प्लांट वो आपसे बंद हो गया। अगर शायद हम ऊंट के मिल्क की चॉकलेट बना रहे होते उस प्लांट से, तो वो प्लांट चलता रहता। आय दोगुनी कितनी हुई है बताएं सरकार? मत्स्य पालन और पशुधन विकास की तरफ सरकार का कोई ध्यान नहीं है। सरकार का कहना है कि वित्त अच्छी हुई है, लेकिन क्या कारण है कि एफडीआई में लगातार कमी आ रही है? विदेशी इन्वेस्टर्स क्यों बाहर ले जा रहे हैं? भारत में इन्वेस्ट करने के लिए क्यों नहीं इच्छुक हैं? और शेयर मार्केट क्यों इतनी जल्दी गिर जाता है? रुपए के मूल्य में डॉलर के विरुद्ध निरंतर गिरावट आ रही है। और इसके बाद सभापति महोदय, इस डील और ढील के बाद हमारा रुपया कहां होगा, ये सरकार जरूर बताए हमें। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में कोई सुधार नहीं हो रहा है। अभी भी हम जीडीपी के 15% पर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर निर्भर हैं, जबकि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के शेयर मेक इंडिया के अनुसार अभी तक 25% होना चाहिए था। इससे स्पष्ट लगता है कि मेक इन इंडिया, आत्मनिर्भर भारत और पीएलआई योजना सफल नहीं हो पाई हैं, और उसी का परिणाम है कि आज हमारे नौजवानों को रोजगार और नौकरी नहीं मिल पा रही है। सरकार उद्योगपतियों के साथ खड़ी है। सरकार द्वारा लेबर कोड्स लाए गए हैं, जिन लेबर रिफॉर्म्स के रूप में दर्शाया जा रहा है वो लेबर कोड एम्प्लॉयर के हित में है, लेबर के पक्ष में नहीं है और मजदूरों के नहीं है। अब अधिकांश उद्योगों द्वारा लेबर को कोई भी नौकरी से निकाला जा सकता है। इतना तानाशाही होगी कि जब चाहेंगे तब निकाल देंगे। उनके 8 घंटे से अधिक काम कराया जा सकता है। परमानेंट एम्प्लॉयमेंट की बजाय कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल एम्प्लॉयमेंट की व्यवस्था की है सरकार ने। सोचिए, यही सरकार है कि सबका साथ सबका विकास। एयर पॉल्यूशन को लेकर के मैं पहले ही कह चुका हूं। और शहरी विकास तो इनका मैंने क्यूटो को मैं देखा है, इसलिए उस क्यूटो के बारे में मैं ज़्यादा नहीं कहना चाहता हूं। अंत में मैं इतना ही कहूंगा कि स्वास्थ्य और शिक्षा के केवल 10% और 14.2% बजट बढ़ाया गया है, जबकि पिछले वर्ष का पूरा बजट इन दोनों मदों में खर्च ही नहीं किया गया है। आखिरकार सरकार बताएगी खर्च क्यों नहीं हुआ, आखिर क्या कारण है किसकी वजह से खर्च नहीं हुआ है। जल जीवन मिशन में 50,000 करोड़ रुपए खर्च नहीं हो पाए हैं और प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना में 40,000 करोड़ रुपए, और हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री ने गांव गोद लिया था, वो लगता है उस गांव को अनाथ छोड़ दिया है प्रधानमंत्री जी ने, वो गांव ही अनाथ छोड़ दिया है। आरबीआई के डेटा के अनुसार इनकम में जो नीचे 80% हैं, उनकी इनकम का शेयर 36% से घट करके 32% हो गया है और हर वर्ष में रियल वेजेस 2% कम हो रही हैं। आखिरकार इसका कारण क्या है? मुझे उम्मीद है सरकार बताएगी कि इसका कारण क्या है कि जिसकी वजह से लगातार गिरावट होती जा रही है। मैं रैंकिंग में नहीं जाना चाहता हूं कि हमारी रैंकिंग कहां है, गैर बराबरी की रैंकिंग में हम कहां पहुंच गए हैं, हम कितना नीचे पहुंच गए हैं। जो तरह तरह की रैंकिंग समय समय पर आती हैं, उन रैंकिंग के बारे में सरकार को ज़रूर पता होगा कि हम एजुकेशन इंडेक्स में कहाँ हैं दुनिया में, हम हेल्थ इंडेक्स में कहाँ हैं दुनिया में, और जो एयर क्वालिटी के इंडेक्स है उसमें हम दुनिया में कहाँ हैं। इसलिए सभापति महोदय, मैं अंत में इतना ही कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये बजट दिशाहीन है। 2047 तक विकसित भारत तो नहीं बनेगा, लेकिन हमारे गरीबों के साथ बहुत अन्याय होगा। जिस तरह एआई पे बात की गई है, एआई अगर अच्छाई और भलाई के लिए हो तो अच्छी बात है, लेकिन पता नहीं भारतीय जनता पार्टी पे कितना रिसोर्सेज हैं कि एआई और जितना भी हमारा वो है जो बजट है, वो सबसे ज़्यादा खर्च वो करते हैं दूसरों को बदनाम करने के लिए। इसलिए इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं सभापति महोदय का धन्यवाद देता हूँ। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि सरकार इस बजट को गरीबों की तरफ मोड़ेगी, पीडीए के लोगों की तरफ मोड़ेगी, जिससे वो भी मुख्य धारा में खड़े हो सकें। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
माननीय सदस्यगण, अभी हम केंद्रीय बजट पर सामान्य चर्चा में हैं। अगला माननीय स्पीकर माननीय श्री अभिषेक बनर्जी जी।
Thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity to speak on the general budget. Sir, I rise here today not merely just a member of the opposition, but as a voice of billion Indians who were promised Achhe Din and who today struggle to survive under the weight of soaring costs. So this union budget was presented on Maghi Purnima, a day which is ideally meant for clarity, renewal of purpose, and moral responsibility. Yet, sir, this budget offers none of these. It does not heal the economy. Rather, this budget curates headlines. It speaks loudly in slogans, but softly in solutions. So this is a budget that rewards those who can avoid taxes through privilege and punishes those who pay them honestly through compulsion. With all due respect to the Honorable Finance Minister, I think the Honorable Finance Minister is appearing to practice the Robin Hood model in reverse. She drains the poor through taxation and inflation while rewarding the rich with concessions and privileges. Sir, even a cup of tea today comes with GST, but relief for the common man comes with condition, clauses, terms, and regulation. This is not a simple tax regime. It's a maze where only the powerful knows the exit and the honest taxpayer keeps paying the entry fee. Sir, Akhilesh ji was speaking before me. He was saying, यूपी के लिए क्या मिला है मैं इस बजट में देखना चाह रहा था. Sir, 85 minutes का finance minister का speech था. Bengal was not even mentioned once. Even the freight corridor from Dankuni, referenced in this very budget, was originally announced by the then railway minister in 2009, which was Mamata Banerjee, who is now the chief minister of West Bengal. The constitution promises equality among states. But this government practices preference. Allies are funded while opponents are starved. So this is not a model of cooperative federalism. This is a model of subscription-based federalism. So the budget and the manner in which the government chooses to function forces us to confront a truth that we as citizens have been avoiding for too long. So in November 2021, on a stage thousands of miles away at the Kennedy Center, Veer Das, a young stand-up comedian from India, spoke of two Indias. Many laughed, some were offended, few paused to listen. But what he offered was not comedy. It was a warning, a prophecy, a mirror held up to a nation standing at the edge of its own contradictions. Because I too, sir, come from India. And I come from an India which proclaims Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. And I also come from an India where mother tongue becomes a marker of suspicion, where speaking Bengali makes you a Bangladeshi and eating fish makes you a Mughal. Sir, I come from a part of India that gave birth to revolutionaries and wrote courage in blood. And I also represent an India where saying Joy Bangla or singing Amar Sonar Bangla is enough to strip you and brand you a labeled Ghuspetia. Sir, I come from an India that thunders Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas from every podium. And I come from an India where West Bengal's rightful dues to the tune of 1,96,000 crores are frozen in cold bureaucratic silence. Sir, what is withheld is not just money. What is withheld is dignity. What is withheld is constitutional promise that every Indian, every state, stands equal before the union. This is not governance or federalism, sir. This is a message that you stand in line or you'll be made to pay the price. And that is the tragedy of our time. India has two faces, but that one India is being asked to kneel before the other is the truth that we all are facing today. Sir, I come from an India where the finance minister proudly declares with absolute confidence that India is the fastest growing economy in the world. And I come from another India where Bengal, after contributing 6.5 lakh crores in taxes in just last 7 years, is systematically denied its rightful share. So despite repeated requests and appeals, we have been denied employment under Manrega, housing under PM Awas Yojana, road connectivity under Gram Sadak Yojana, even basic drinking water under Jal Jeevan Mission is being stopped. So I come from an India that boasts of maximum governance, minimum government. And I also come from an India where governance means abandonment, where the poorest are forced to fight for roti kapra makan, where wages are held hostage, where houses are sanctioned on paper but erased in practice, where even drinking water becomes a bargaining chip in a political vendetta. I come from an India where farmers are stopped at the national capital with nail embedded in the roads with concrete barricades. And I also come from an India where terrorists can enter the national capital and carry out blasts killing 15 innocent people. I come from an India where we are told, and I quote, India's borders are safe and they cannot be violated. A promise that is made from the highest office. And I also come from an India where that promise lies in ruins. Terrorists crosses our border, infiltrated heavily guarded militarized zones like Pahalgam, and gunned down 26 innocent civilians under broad daylight. And Honorable Sir, all of these, the abandonment, the broken promises, the selective cruelty, it's not random, it's not accidental. It flows from a single, unmistakable principle of this budget. So this budget is built on a single unmistakable principle, that is triple, teen. A writer once said, There are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. Modern India lives with three certainties: pressure that mounts, taxes that multiply, and trust that is betrayed. So today, India lives under triple pressure, triple taxation, and triple betrayal. Triple. So let me place before this August House my 10 principles of triple. Sir, पहले है ट्रिपल टैक्स ट्रैप। एक आम इंसान को लगता है मैं एक बार इनकम टैक्स दे रहा हूं, बट आई विल एक्सप्लेन टू द चेयर एंड शेयर विद दिस ऑगस्ट हाउस that how a common man is being taxed 3 times over, not once, twice, but thrice. So the first blow is the income tax. The salaried citizen pays tax even before the salary reaches his bank account. There is no escape, no negotiation, no adjustment made for inflation. In today's India, honesty doesn't pay, it costs. So number 2 is GST. From the first biscuit with the morning tea to a school notebook, from sugar and spices in the kitchen to the electricity bills, from hospital expenses to medical expenses, from soap in the bathroom to the software at work, indirect taxes follows everywhere. Sir, जहां सरकार की welfare schemes नहीं पहुंचती है, वहां भी GST पहुंच जाती है. The government celebrates record GST revenue, but this number do not reflect growth or prosperity. They reflect a system squeezing revenue from consumption, often from necessity, not choice. So third tax is inflation, the most silent tax of all. The tax that rises without permission and collects without responsibility. It's a slow leak in the common man's wallet. For the middle class, inflation feels like the salary comes on time, but it doesn't last the month. The same grocery list costs more, the same school fees feel heavier, and the same electricity bill shocks more than even before. Nothing extra is being bought, yet money disappears faster. It quietly eats into savings meant for children's education, family travel, medical emergency, or old age. Sir, I come from an India that proudly calls itself a Vishwa Guru. And I also come from an India that is teaching the world how to extract triple tax out of a single citizen. So my triple number 2, triple pain of proving your existence. So let us be honest. Voting today is no longer considered enough. Having one's name on the electoral rolls for decades is no longer enough. Even service to the nation is no longer enough. You may be a decorated soldier, a Nobel laureate, a sitting High Court justice, or even a member of this august house, and still you have been asked to prove that you belong. This strikes the heart of Article 326 of the Constitution, which guarantees adult citizens the right to vote. Sir, in Bengal alone, 150 lives have been lost in the last couple of months, and nearly 1 crore people are today being treated as suspects. If electoral rolls are so unreliable that every citizen must continually reprove their legitimacy, then by that same logic, sir, the legitimacy of this very house, formed on the basis of this very electoral rolls, is itself questionable. Yes. So my triple number 3, and I'll talk of 3 betrayal. First betrayal is where the global crude oil prices crash. Indian citizen sees no benefit. Instead, the common man is generally offered ethanol mixed petrol at a premium, paying extra for a policy experiment he neither demanded nor benefits from. My second betrayal, the government boasts of bullet trains, which Akhilesh ji has also mentioned. While fancy trains make the headlines, only 4% of the network is safeguarded with Kavach, leaving ordinary travelers exposed to risk. Third betrayal. So the ordinary Indian doesn't ask for any miracle. They ask for clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, safe roads to return home, and affordable health care while life falters. Even these simple hopes remain uncertain. An ordinary citizen pays income tax to buy a vehicle. Or for example, an ordinary citizen pays income tax to earn, a road tax to buy a vehicle, and toll tax to drive it on the road, often broken, unsafe, and unfinished. So 3 payments on one journey. अगर एक इंसान इनकम टैक्स दे रहा है तो एक गाड़ी को सड़क पे चलाने के लिए सर उसको 3 बार टैक्स देना पड़ता है. एक है इनकम टैक्स, दूसरा है रोड टैक्स, तीसरा है टोल टैक्स. That is why I said 3 betrayals. So now I'll come to triple bonanzas for the rich. So this budget reveals a clear pattern. First, a triple bonanza for the elites and a triple lock on the poor. So top 10% of this country now corner 57% of nation's income and 65% of its wealth, while the bottom half survives on just 6.4%. In this economy, money earns money, but survival earns nothing. Second, so if you look at taxation and support, foreign cloud giants are handed tax holidays, while Indian MSME, the very backbone of employment, are left empty-handed. Sir, relief exists on paper, but in actual distress exists on the ground. Third, corporate India gets red carpet, easier property rules, wider equity access for NRIs and massive infrastructure promises. But the result of these government policies is not competition, it is concentration. Oligopolies flourish, entry barriers rise, and ordinary entrepreneurs are kept outside the gate, watching cronies grow richer with the union support. Sir, I come from an India where wealth is applauded as a virtue. And I also come from an India where survival itself is treated as ambition. I come from an India where policy quietly opens the gates for the powerful. And I also come from an India that stand outside those gates with hands folded, backs bent, hearts heavy, and eyes raised, hoping that one day these gates will open for them too. Now my 555, farmers. So the budget completes a cycle of betrayal. Every day, nearly 30 farmers dies by suicide. Not because they failed, but because policy failed them. 5 years after the historic farmers' movement, which saw 700 lives lost, the union government has still refused to legalize MSP. Promises were made at protest sites, assurances were echoed in parliament, but delivery never followed. And now, adding salt to the injury, the government has now announced a trade deal with the United States that will open Indian markets to heavily subsidized American farm produce. The deal may benefit American farmers, but it will depress prices, destroy competitiveness, and further marginalize Indian farmers who struggle without MSP protection. So this is not a trade policy. This is an abandonment of our Annadata. Sir, I have a tweet right in front of me, which I want to show or place before you. Sir, Secretary Brooke Rollins, who is the Agricultural Secretary of the United States, she said, and this is 5 days back, on the day when the trade deal was announced, she's clearly saying, new US-India deal will export more American farm products to India's massive market. In 2024, America's agricultural trade deficit with India was 1.3 billion. India's growing population is an important market for American agricultural products, and today's deal will go a long way to reduce that deficit. So this is not my tweet. She clearly says, thank you, President of the United States, for once again delivering for our American farmers. If the government doesn't agree with a tweet, so where is the disapproval letter, or where is the communication that the government has sent in protest to the tweet that has been sent out 5 days back? Sir, America का एग्रीकल्चर सेक्रेटरी कह रहा है इस डील से अमेरिका का किसानों का फायदा है, इसीलिए हम अमेरिका का सभापति का धन्यवाद करता है. And the Indian government of the union has not written a line in protest of what the Agriculture Secretary has tweeted. So now I come to youth. So the much publicized PM internship scheme was allocated over 10,800 crores. Less than 5% of the amount has been utilized. Similarly, the PM Young Achiever Scholarship, which was meant to uplift the talented students from marginalized backgrounds, saw 31% of its fund go unused in financial year 25-26. Sir, if I speak of women, more than 86 women are raped every day in this country. A number that reflects systematic collapse, not isolated crime. Sir, Bengal exercised its constitutional authority and passed the Aparajita Bill, a stringent anti-rape law providing the strongest deterrence against crime against women. So the bill was duly sent to the union through the governor about 18 to 19 months ago. For a year and a half, it has remained pending without any decision. So when a democratically passed law maintained to strengthen protection is left in a limbo, it expresses a lack of intent. This reminds me that I come from an India that promises to double farmers' income. And I come from an India where 1,11,174 farmers and agricultural laborers, brothers and sisters have been forced to commit suicide. I come from an India which launched Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and I come from another India where every 16 minutes a rape or a crime against women is being reported. So now I come to three cracks in the Constitution. Number one, so hatred has now been normalized. It has moved from margin to the mainstream. So if I talk about cases registered for promoting enmity between religious and social groups, the number of cases has doubled between 2021 and 2023. And this rise didn't happen in silence. It happened alongside political speeches, public rallies, and calculated dog whistles. When hate goes unpunished, it spreads. When it spreads, minorities pay the price. Second, hate is no longer whispered. It has become a broadcast. So our country has documented more than 1,300 hate speeches in a single year. When such volume of hate fills public space, the government refuses to act decisively, swiftly, then the message is clear, sir. Intimidation is tolerated and silence is the union's policy. Third, sir, the education empowerment scheme under the Ministry of Minority Affairs has just used 8% of its total funds, while the 35% of the ministry's allocation, 27% under tribal affairs, and 28% under scheduled tribes remain unutilized. Sir, even schemes like a scholarship like Maulana Azad National Fellowship, pre-metric scholarship, and Paro Pradesh have been hollowed out. So now I come to 777, which is the triple power grab. Over the last decade, the government has treated institutions as the government's own personal property. So the parliament is silenced, debates are curtailed, scrutiny is abandoned, and even the deputy speaker's post is kept vacant because dissent is inconvenient. So investigating agencies no longer investigate, they intimidate, chasing the opposition with raids and arrests. While convictions become negligible, as independent institutions weakened, public institutions are put on the auction block. Air India, BPCL, the shipping corporation, built by generation with public money, are being sold like distressed assets, hastily, without any sort of accountability. So this is described as reform, but it is actually a managed handover. When institutions are bent to serve power and national assets are reduced to headlines and handover, the Constitution is not broken in protest, it's torn apart. Sir, I come from an India where the Honorable Prime Minister says, na khaunga, na khane dunga. And I also come from an India where questioning the washing machine that gave reprieve to 23 of the 25 leaders who joined the BJP makes you the most corrupt one. So now I come to triple jumla on finances. Agriculture. So the budget waxes eloquent about coconut, cocoa, cashew, sandalwood, fisheries and AI advisories, but remains silent on MSP assurances, procurement expansion. There is no price stabilization fund, no diesel support, no fertilizer relief, and no electrical subsidy. This is diversification without security, and it leaves the majority of Indian farmers, trapped in distress. Sir, even the PM Kisan scheme has been stuck at 6,000 rupees since December 2018. Despite soaring input costs and record diesel prices, sir, in actual, if we see, real terms, farmers are earning less each year. A rupee in 2018 is not a rupee in 2026. Sir, if I speak of healthcare, the government spends less than 0.26% of the GDP. And they might have questions on my source of information. If the need be, I will place all the sources before the table by 8 p.m. tonight. The government spends 0.26% of GDP on public health even today. The national health policy promised 2.5% of GDP. What we get instead is postponement, excuses, and under-allocation. In a country where illness is still the fastest road to poverty, this budget chooses flyover over first aid, optics over oxygen, and announcement over actual care. So if I speak of infrastructure, the smart city mission promised transformation in 100 cities with over 2 lakh crore. Yet a decade later, what we have is half-dug roads and half-built homes. Instead of finishing the job, this budget announces new economic regions. Sir, under the Jal Jeevan mission, funds were cut by 74%, forcing states to pick up the bill. In higher education, 55,000 crore is spent on management, but 2.68 crore on infrastructure, not even enough to build a world-class lab. So now I come to my 999, the triple truth trap. And what I mean by truth is, the accountability on the government, sir, primarily rests on 3 pillars. One is the RTI Act. But when I speak of transparency, it diluted the RTI Act by expanding personal information as a ground for refusal. Sir, if you speak of PM cares, the PMO claims it lies outside the purview of RTI because it's a private fund. A fund that is created by public authority in a public office with the money of the people is being claimed as a private fund. There's no accountability. Sir, NFHS and NCRB data has been frozen because welfare still runs on Census 2011. Sir, if I am to summarize the budget from the perspective of 3 stalwarts, B.R. Ambedkar warned us. What is the moral verdict of the budget? If we were to look at it from the perspective of Dr. Ambedkar, Gandhiji, or Swami Vivekananda, Dr. Ambedkar warned us that democracy is not just institutions. It is a constitutional morality. Gandhiji taught us economics divorced from ethics is violence. Swami Vivekananda reminded us that a nation cannot rise by crushing the weakest. Well, this budget violates all 3. In today's India, sir, tax does not follow income. Tax follows life. आज के भारत में टैक्स कमाई के पीछे नहीं, जिंदगी के पीछे है, चलता है सर. I will give you a small example. A baby is born, his milk and diapers are taxed. He grows, his education is taxed. He studies, his books, pencil and mobile data are taxed. He starts earning, his income is taxed. He saves for future, his savings are taxed. He spends to survive, his survival is taxed. He goes to work, his fuel is taxed. He falls sick, his illness is taxed. He grows old, pension and healthcare are also taxed. And Honorable Speaker, even after his death, the family still pays tax. बच्चा पैदा होता है, दूध और डायपर पर टैक्स, पढ़ाई शुरू होती है, शिक्षा पर टैक्स, किताबें, नोटबुक, पेन, पेंसिल, मोबाइल डेटा सब पर टैक्स, कमाई शुरू होता है, इनकम पर टैक्स, सर बचत करता है, बचत के ऊपर टैक्स, जीने के लिए खर्च करता है, खर्च पे टैक्स, काम पर जाता है, पेट्रोल डीजल पर टैक्स, बीमार पड़ता है, इलाज और दवाई पर टैक्स, बुढ़ापा आता है, पेंशन और इलाज पे टैक्स, और मौत के बाद भी सर शोक सभा में अगरबत्ती जलाने के लिए भी परिवार को टैक्स देना पड़ता है. This summarizes the budget. Sir, I am addressing the chair. I'm sure the finance minister will have a reply ready. When she is given the opportunity to speak, she can quote me, and if I am misleading the house, she can take my name and then place her arguments. Sir, from a baby's first milk to a citizen's final farewell, this government taxes life at every step. जन्म से लेके अंतिम संस्कार तक हर कदम पर टैक्स. ये रिफॉर्म नहीं सर, ये लाइफ टाइम टैक्स ट्रैप है. सर नाउ आई कम टू 1010, मेरा लास्ट ट्रिपल. मैंने 9 ट्रिपल का बात किया, अब 10वां कर रहा हूं. सर आई विल एंड विथ 3 dates, 3 moments of history: 2016, 2021 and 2024. 3 elections, 3 verdicts, 3 decisive defeats for the BJP in West Bengal. And after this triple defeat, a 4th one is no longer a warning. It is approaching. Sir, मैं ज़्यादा घुमाऊंगा नहीं. Let me come straight. Sir, the government want to punish Bengal. Let them proceed. We won't bow. You want to freeze our funds? We will persist. मैं क्यों कह रहा हूँ persist? क्योंकि पीएम आवास से लेके, सड़क से लेके, मनरेगा से लेके सारे पैसे बंगाल के पिछले 5 साल से ये सरकार ने रोक के रखा है. प्रधानमंत्री ने आत्मनिर्भर भारत की बात किया है, हम स्वनिर्भर बंगाल क्या होता है काम करके दिखाया है. So you want to punish Bengal? Proceed, we won't bow. You want to freeze our funds? We will persist. You want to profile and persecute our youth? We will protect them. You want to starve our schemes? We will sustain our people. Bengal's spine was not ever bent by surrender, nor softened by sermons of hate. It is forged in struggle, tempered in sacrifice, and is not for sale. Go ahead, send your audits. We will answer them. Unleash your agencies. We will confront them. Delay our clearances. We will chronicle every day stolen, every stolen day. But remember this: files can be frozen, funds can be stalled, voices can be suppressed, but memories can't be erased. And when the people rise and the ballot breaks the silence, we will settle the final account. You will wear the mask of the union, we will raise the mirror of the people. And when truth looks back, power will bend and we'll have to blink first. So this reminds me again that I come from an India that celebrates labor as a backbone of the economy, the hands that build our highways, factories, ports, cities, this parliament. But I also represent an India where that very labor, when it travels from Bengal, is no longer seen as a labor, he's seen as a suspect. Punished for the language he speaks. I come from an India where Northeast is proudly called Ashtalakshmi. And I also come from an India where Manipur bled for 864 days and the Prime Minister found no time to visit. I come from an India that derives its vocabulary from Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. And I also come from an India where Vidyasagar's bust was vandalized by ruling party at the center. I come from an India where we worship Ma Durga as Supreme Shakti. And I also come from an India where Ma Durga's ancestry is questioned by BJP leaders. Sir, I really come from 2 India. And honestly, I'm tired of explaining this house which India I belong to. Because the truth are, they both exist. And until and unless we acknowledge the second one exists, we will never be able to be the first one we claim to be. So budgets can divide, politics can polarize, power can pretend, but there's something deeper than budgets, older than governments, and stronger than fear, which is the moral imagination of the people. When institutions weaken and language loses its faith, it is our literature, our culture, our shared memory that rises to remind the nation of who it is and who it must never cease to be. So I finally return to the Constitution. When you open the Constitution, it opens with the words, "We, the people of India." It's not a ceremonial phrase. It's a declaration of sovereignty. It's a reminder that power flows upward from the people, not the other way down. That governments may rule, but people remain the supreme. That sentence is not meant to be recited. It is meant to be lived. And as long as people remember it, no fear can last, no injustice can endure, and no republic can ever truly be taken away. And thus today, I do not end with slogans. I end with conscience, and I end with voice of Bengal. এই মৃত্যু উপত্যকা আমার দেশ না, এই জল্লাদের উল্লাস মঞ্চ আমার দেশ না, এই বিস্তীর্ণ শ্মশান আমার দেশ না, এই রক্তস্নাত কসাইখানা আমার দেশ না। আমি আমার দেশকে ফিরে কেড়ে নেব। জয় হিন্দ, জয় বাংলা।
Thank you. Next speaker, Sri T.R. Baluji.
Honorable Chairman, sir, thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss on the subject matter of budget estimate 26-27. First of all, I would like to congratulate Madam Nirmala Sitharaman ji for having brought the budget estimates for the consecutive 9th time, next to Mr. Chidambaram, who has also done the same thing in the same parliament. Sir, Finance Minister claims she aims at developing India by 2047. India has programmed like artificial intelligence, biopharma, semiconductors, critical minerals, and they are given a lot of priority and importance. But the question is, how efficiently Madam Nirmala ji is going to implement them with a sustained push. So strategy of the government is said to be reducing revenue expenditure and increasing capital expenditure. It is also claimed that revenue expenditure has fallen by 11% in the last 10 years. That is from 88% in 2014-15 to 77% 26-27. It is also stated that the reduction of the revenue expenditure included 7% of subsidies. But what is the reality? Well, usual practice is reduction of subsidies in the budget estimate, and in the next 6 months we come up with additional demands for subsidies through supplementary demands. That is what I have also mentioned in the last supplementary demands in 25-26. Within 6 months, things became haywire. Now at the end of the current fiscal year, you are saying that the revenue receipts shortfall is around 78,086 crores. Decrease in revenue expenditure is 1,05,503 crores. The fall in capital expenditure is 1,44,376 crores. It's a very huge fall. It gives no hope of credibility. Budget 26-27. Expenditure estimated is 53.43 lakhs crores. Expenditure proposed in 25-26 was 50.65 lakhs crores. Now FM is asking 3 lakh crores more in upcoming fiscal year. Usually the government used to announce big schemes in the budget, but even after several months, no progress is the result. Last year, 15th August, Employment Linked Incentive, ELI, scheme was announced, and the incentive to labor and industry to provide additional 3.5 lakhs crores, 5 crores jobs, with the outlay of 99,446 crores was launched, but the scheme has not taken off. Another non-starter is Research and Development Innovation, RDI scheme, announced with the effect from 1/7/25 and was said to be implemented with a corpus of 1 lakh crore, and provision of 20,000 crores was made in 25-26 budget. But no progress has been achieved in this effort. Also, this was also properly responded by the Honorable Minister during his reply in the Lok Sabha. Coconut production in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is the second largest coconut production state. 12 lakh acres are under cocoa cultivation, next to paddy. Besides Pollachi, Pattukottai, Tiruchi, Dindigul, and others, southern districts are major coconut producing districts. It has got high export potential to an extent of 3,500 crores per year. The production has fallen because of the root diseases, but Government of India has not taken care, and the root diseases still remain. Economic survey pointed out that the agricultural growth has slowed down to 3.5% in 25-26 from 4.4%, nearly 1.1% fall. The tariff and trade agreement unilaterally announced by USA bound to open floodgates to import of agricultural products into India. This will be disastrous for our farmers and farm sector. The Finance Minister has said in her speech that rich value crops like coconut, cocoa, sandalwood, cashews, etc. will be given special support. But the allocation was just 350 crores only. The farmers' organization are condemning this announcement of government is nothing but a naive rhetoric. Banana is another crop that requires special attention and support from Government of India. Tamil Nadu is #1 in banana cultivation and exports around 4,000 crores every year. Government of India should come forward to give special intensive to banana cultivation to boost exports. Union government has been giving stepmotherly treatment to Tamil Nadu, and there has been no special scheme or financial allocation so far. Even the prestigious projects like Setu Samudram, which were implemented by UPA, has been shelved on political grounds. UPA government had gifted 69 large projects and very important projects in all sectors during 2004 and 2014. The last of the schemes included the Tamil as Sammuri, Chennai port as to Madurai elevated bridge of 21 kilometers, abolition of Sanwar to protect textile industry, new railway station, new Norway division at Salem, Thiruvarur Central University, IEM at Trichy, Indian Maritime University at Chennai, etc. On the contrary, it lasts 12 years. For the past 12 years, one project has come, that is AIMS Madurai. Not yet taken up. AIMS Madurai is still under the ground. It has not yet been taken up. Tamil Nadu CM had also stated during UPA, Tamil Nadu was allotted 11% of plan expenditure, and now Tamil Nadu is given 0 only. Government of India is not funding Metro Rail Project #2, Samagra Shiksha Fund to the tune of 3,548 crores, not yet released. Madurai and Coimbatore Metro, which has been provided 21,000 crores, and project submitted to the Central Union Government has not given approval. But at the same time, small towns like Agra, Bhubaneswar, Navi Mumbai, and Indore have been permitted. Jal Jeevan Fund, rupees 3,112 crores had not been released. Railway schemes, 289.73 crores to Thiruvananthapuram, Kanyakumari not released so far for the land acquisition. Further, to purchase 931 hectares of land, funds have not been provided. CM Tamil Nadu has also urged that the devolution from the divisible pool from taxes should be increased to 50%, but it has fallen on deaf ears of the union government, and at present 41% is retained. I also urge the Government of India that cess and other taxes which are not being shared with the state should be abolished immediately, or they should be brought under the divisible pool. Such anti-federal attitude and exploitation must be ended. What happened to the promises made by the Honorable Prime Minister of India? 2 lakhs jobs per year. What has happened? 15 lakhs per family. What has happened? Nobody, it's all dumbfounded. For this question, always for the past 10 years, Government of India, the people of Government of India representing the Government of India, they are keeping lukewarm position only. Much talked about MSP not implemented. Double the agriculture income not implemented. And Dr. Swaminathan's recommendations have become only slogans to every election. People of the industry, business, the middle class, and even the ordinary men on the street have expressed dissatisfaction and said your budget is nothing but the rhetoric of a sloganeering government with little use to the common mass. Before I conclude, how are you going to arrest the jet speed depreciation of rupee against US dollar? It is already around 92 per dollar. Prime Minister has lauded this budget as a historic. There is proverb in Tamil, Kakaki Tangunjam Pungunji. It means to a crow, its offspring is golden. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Sri B. Nagaraju.
Respected Speaker, sir, మన గౌరవనీయ ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోడీ గారి యొక్క దూరదృష్టి నాయకత్వాన్ని ప్రశంసిస్తూ 2026-2027 ఆర్థిక సంవత్సరానికి ముందు చూపుతో మరియు ఆర్థిక క్రమశిక్షణతో కూడినటువంటి కేంద్ర బడ్జెట్ను సమర్పించినటువంటి గౌరవనీయులైన ఆర్థిక మంత్రి నిర్మలా సీతారామన్ గారిని అభినందిస్తూ వికసిత్ భారత్ లక్ష్యంగా ఈ ఆర్థిక సంవత్సరపు బడ్జెట్ను 3 కర్తవ్యాల ఆధారంగా రూపుదిద్దుకుంది అధ్యక్ష. అందులో భాగంగా మొదటి అంశం వచ్చేసి ఆర్థిక వృద్ధిని వేగవంతం చేయడం, రెండవ అంశం వచ్చేసి సామర్థ్యాన్ని పెంపొందించడం, మూడవ అంశం సమగ్రాభివృద్ధిని నిర్ధారించడం. ఈ 3 అంశాల ఆధారంగా ఇది స్పష్టమైన మ్యాక్రో ఆర్థిక దిశను నిర్దేశిస్తూ ఉంది అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే ఈ బడ్జెట్లో ముఖ్యంగా అధ్యక్ష నాన్ డెబిట్ రిసిప్ట్స్ కోసం 36.5 లక్షల కోట్ల రూపాయలను మరియు మొత్తం వ్యయంను 53.5 lakhs కోట్లను అంచనా వేయబడింది అధ్యక్ష. మూలధన వ్యయం వచ్చేసి 12.2 లక్షల కోట్లకు పెంచబడింది అధ్యక్ష, ఎన్నడూ లేని విధంగా. అంతేగాక ఇది వచ్చేసి ముఖ్యంగా ఈ బడ్జెట్లో మౌలిక వసతుల మరియు ఆధారిత వృద్ధికి ప్రభుత్వం యొక్క కట్టుబాటును చూపిస్తూ ఉంది అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే ఆర్థిక లోటు వచ్చేసి జీడిపిలో 4.3% తగ్గించబడింది. రుణం మరియు జీడిపి నిష్పత్తి 55.6%కి తగ్గేలా అంచనా వేయబడింది అధ్యక్ష. ఈ సంఖ్యలన్నవి అభివృద్ధి మరియు ఆర్థిక క్రమశిక్షణ మధ్య సమతుల్యతను ప్రతిబింబిస్తూ ఉన్నాయి అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే అధ్యక్ష ప్రతిపక్షాలు ఇంతసేపు వారి యొక్క స్పీచ్లో ఎంతసేపు ఉన్నా కూడా గవర్నమెంట్ మీద నిందలు మోపుతూ బడ్జెట్ మీద ఇది చేస్తున్నది సరికాదు అధ్యక్ష. ఎందుకంటే భారత్ అనేది తయారీ రంగంలో మేక్ ఇన్ ఇండియాలో ఎస్పెషల్లీ వ్యూహాత్మక రంగాలకు పెద్దపీట వేయబడింది అధ్యక్ష. అందులో భాగంగా బయోఫార్మా శక్తి కోసం 10,000 కోట్ల రూపాయలను మరియు ఎలక్ట్రానిక్స్ భాగాల తయారీకి 40,000 కోట్ల రూపాయలను, కార్బన్ క్యాప్చర్ సాంకేతికలకు 20,000 కోట్ల రూపాయలను మరియు ఛాంపియన్ ఎస్ఎంఈల కింద 10,000 కోట్ల రూపాయల నిధిని ఈ బడ్జెట్లో ఏర్పాటు చేశారు అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే అధ్యక్ష, ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి ఆధునిక యుగంలో పాశ్చాత్య దేశాలతో పోటీ పడుతూ టెక్నాలజీని ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి ప్రజలకు అవసరాల కోసం ఏ రోజుకి ఆ రోజు పోటీ పడుతూ ఈ బడ్జెట్లో 7 హైస్పీడ్ రైలు కారిడార్లను ప్రతిపాదించబడ్డాయి అధ్యక్ష. అంతేగాక 20 జాతీయ జల మార్గాలు అభివృద్ధి చేయబడుతున్నాయి అధ్యక్ష. మూలధన వ్యయం కింద చరిత్రాత్మక స్థాయిలో ఎన్నడూ లేని విధంగా ఉపయోగిస్తూ ఉన్నారు అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే ఇది సాధారణ బడ్జెట్ కాదు అధ్యక్ష, ఇది నిర్మాణాత్మక సంస్కరణల బడ్జెట్గా భావిస్తున్నాను అధ్యక్ష. సరఫరా గొలుసులను మరియు బలోపేతం చేయడమే కాకుండా ఎగుమతులను పెంపొందించడం మరియు సూక్ష్మ మరియు మధ్య తరహా పరిశ్రమలను ప్రోత్సహించడంలో భాగంగా రైతులకు మద్దతు ధర ఇవ్వడంలో మరియు భారతదేశాన్ని గ్లోబల్ పోటీలో ముందుకు తీసుకెళ్లడంలో భాగంగా ముఖ్య ఉద్దేశంగా ఈ బడ్జెట్ను రూపొందించారని తెలియజేస్తా ఉన్నాను అధ్యక్ష. అధ్యక్ష, ఇప్పుడు ముఖ్యంగా మా ఆంధ్ర రాష్ట్రానికి ఈ బడ్జెట్ ఆంధ్ర రాష్ట్రానికి ఎలా ప్రయోజనం చేకూర్చిందో ప్రత్యేకంగా 2 విషయాల్లో ప్రస్తావించదలుచుకున్నాను అధ్యక్ష. 16వ ఆర్థిక సంఘం సిఫార్సుల మేరకు ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్రానికి 64,320 కోట్ల రూపాయలను కేటాయించబడ్డాయి అధ్యక్ష. విభజిత ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో రాష్ట్ర వాటా 4.21%గా పెరిగింది. ఇది రాష్ట్ర అభివృద్ధి అవసరాలను గుర్తించిన నిర్ణయంగా భావిస్తున్నాం అధ్యక్ష. ఎందుకంటే ఈ విషయంలో మేము గౌరవ నిర్మలా సీతారామన్ మేడం గారికి మరొకసారి ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేస్తున్నాను అధ్యక్ష. ఎందుకంటే ఈ విషయంలో డెడికేటెడ్ రేర్ ఎర్త్ పర్మనెంట్ మ్యాగ్నెట్ కారిడార్ల ప్రకటన మరియు ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్కు చారిత్రాత్మక అవకాశం కల్పించినటువంటి అవకాశం మరియు ఖనిజ సంపద ఉన్నటువంటి రాష్ట్రంగా మేము తవ్వకాల దశను దాటి విలువ ఆధారిత పరిశ్రమల వైపు అడుగులు వేస్తూ ప్రాసెసింగ్ మరియు పరిశోధన ఆధునిక తయారీ వైపు ముందుకు సాగుతున్న విధంగా పనిచేస్తూ ఉంది అధ్యక్ష ఈ బడ్జెట్ అన్నది. ఏపీలో వచ్చేసి అధ్యక్ష మాకు తీర ప్రాంతం అనేది సుదీర్ఘంగా ఉంది అధ్యక్ష. అందులో భాగంగా మత్స్య మరియు ఎగుమతులకు క్లస్టర్లకు మద్దతు ఎంతో ప్రయోజనం చేకూర్చే విధంగా ఈ బడ్జెట్ రూపొందించారు అధ్యక్ష. అంతేగాక డ్యూటీ ఫ్రీ దిగుమతుల పరిమితిని 1% నుంచి 3% వరకు పెంచడం వలన వ్యయం భారం తగ్గుతుంది అధ్యక్ష. అందులో భాగంగా భారతదేశ ఈజెడ్లో చేపల వేటకు ఇచ్చినటువంటి మద్దతు మా మత్స్యకారులకు ఆదాయం పెంపుకు దోహదపడుతుంది అధ్యక్ష. ఇకపోతే అధ్యక్ష, ట్రైబల్ ఏరియాలో భాగంగా అరకులోయలో సస్టైనబుల్ మౌంటైన్ ట్రైల్స్ను మరియు పులికాట్ సరస్సు యొక్క పరిసరాల్లో ఈ పక్షి వీక్షణ మార్గాలను ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్కు పర్యావరణ పరంగా పర్యాటక పరంగా కేంద్రంగా నిలబడుతున్నాయి అధ్యక్ష. ఇవి కాక ఉపాధి అవకాశాలను
Zero funding in the revised estimates. These announcements are like modern courtships. Promises without commitment. That's what this government does to us. At a time when farm distress is deepening, the budget silence on revising the PM Kisan Nidhi disbursement speaks louder than any promise made elsewhere. हमारे किसानों की आय दोगुनी करने का वादा तो आपसे पूरा हो नहीं पाया. कम से कम उनकी सम्मान निधि.
The total receipts other than borrowings are estimated to be 36.51 lakh crores, which is 7.2 higher than the revised estimates of 25-26. Revenue deficit in 26-27 is targeted at 1.5% of the GDP, which is the same like revised estimate of 25-26. It is unchanged. Fiscal deficit of 26-27 is targeted at 4.3% of the GDP, which is lower than the revised estimates of 4.4% of GDP of 25-26. So as far as debt is concerned, government aims to reduce its outstanding liabilities to around 50% of the GDP by 2031, that is in 5 years. In 26-27, outstanding liabilities are estimated to be around 55.6% of the GDP, 55.6% of the GDP. This budget 26-27 emphasized the need for fiscal consolidation, targeting a reduction of debt to GDP ratio to 50% plus or minus 1% by year 2030, that is in 5 years, which is now 55.6% of the GDP. So fiscal consolidation is being pursued by cutting total expenditure by 5%, but no significant growth momentum is expected, with only 10.9% of the growth in capital expenditure in terms of GDP. There is no corresponding increase in capital expenditure. So there is marginal increase in union government revenue expenditure, which shows at 39.44 lakh from 25-26 revised estimate to 41.25 lakh crores in 26-27. That is a growth of around 4.5%. There is only a marginal increase in transfer towards centrally sponsored schemes, rising from 5.42 lakh crore in 25-26 to 5.49 lakh crore in 26-27. That is just an increase of 1.28%. So it is to be noted that Finance Commission grants have declined from 1.32 lakh crore in 25-26 budget estimates to 1.29 lakh crore in 26-27 budget estimates. So as far as revenue receipts are concerned, only marginal increase is there in revenue receipts from 34.30 lakh crore in 25-26 to 35.33 lakh crores in 26-27. That is rise of around 2.90%. There is no estimate of GST compensation cess collection, and budget is silent about the future of GST compensation cess. I think I would request Honorable Finance Minister to shed some light on this aspect, because we would like to know how the compensation cess stands and what is the future course of it. The share of the states has fallen from 14.22 lakh crore in 25-26 to 14.22 lakh crore in 25-26 to 13.93 in 25-26 RA, which is decline of minus 2.07 for year 26-27. The estimated tax share to states in rupees 15.26 lakhs crore, which is only 7.3 higher than the previous year. Even after considering the 16th Finance Commission tax devolution, the centre's tax share to states amounts to 34.65 instead of which is mandated of 41%. 16th Finance Commission recommended state share in divisible pool at its present level of 41%. For horizontal devolution, there is a change in the criteria and weights from 15th Finance Commission. The major change is the criteria inclusion of contribution to GDP, that is 10% weightage is given, and demographic performance by each state. With regard to revenue deficit grants, the 16th Finance Commission has not recommended that the same be granted to the states. When states fall of revenue deficit, they try to get revenue deficit from the something from the center to carry on with their projects like development or wherever it is needed. But this time around, Finance Commission has regretted, it has negatived the recommendation, which will put the stress on the states, because states are not able to generate any kind of significant revenue, as GST has already subsumed all taxes and there are hardly any avenues left for the center to generate a revenue of its kind. My state of Maharashtra contributes the maximum to the central exchequer. In recent years, we've seen, sir, that we've been contributing more than 5 lakh crore, 5 to 5.5 lakh crore to the central exchequer, but what we get in return is hardly around 3 lakh crore. Though Maharashtra CM, Sri Fadnavis, has said, and he has praised the entire budget, substantiating the facts that around 1 lakh crore will come to the state of Maharashtra, out of which 98,000 crores will be in the form of devolution or the tax returns what we'll be getting by it, and 12,000 crores for various projects which are there in Maharashtra, which have come up, that 26-27 allocations have been made for different projects. Now, Maharashtra is expected to receive close to ₹1 lakh, but the basic thing, if we go by the budget, whatever has been stated by the CM and whatever has been praised, I mean, the reality is far from what the picture exists on the ground. The projects which have been funded or projects which have been allocated, good amount of, as far as infrastructure is concerned or urban projects are, urban development projects are concerned, the projects which have been there in the pipeline, projects which have been initiated and which are in progress, they have been exorbitantly cost escalation has taken place. The overvaluation is being done, and it is favoring the contractors, which comes from to the government, and it gives suspicion for a lie or for suspicion to raise our doubts as far as corruption is concerned in Maharashtra. So whatever projects which are there, Mumbai-Aurangabad high-speed rail, that is 6,103 crore has been provided for that corridor. Mumbai metro projects, 1,702 crore has been provided for that. Mumbai urban transport project, MUTP 3, 462 crores have been allocated. Now, green mobility projects in MMR region, that is Mumbai metropolitan region, 155 crores have been allocated. Intelligent transport system ITS on Samriddhi Mahamarga, that is 680 crores. Now these are, and Pune Metro Rail project, that is 517 crores. These projects which ought to have been completed by long, but it is not yet completed, that escalation is on, overvaluation is being done, and this non-completion is not only proving inconvenient to the people, but it comes as a hindrance in the progress of Maharashtra. And who is benefiting out of it? Only contractors are benefiting out of it, and that is in connivance with the government officials or the politicians who are there and the treasury benches of Maharashtra. So these are the things, I mean, not leveling the charges, but this is what is seen by the people, felt by the people, and people feel that progressive state like Maharashtra, why it is taken back seat. Now, sir, finance and economy is concerned, as far as this budget is concerned, high-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat it is been proposed. Now, banking sector, that is the backbone of Indian economy. Now, this public sector, which had the strength, yesterday only or today only in the papers it has come, that State Bank of India has registered a 31,000 crore profit in the last quarter. So that is the strength and that is the capacity potential what our public sector banks, insurance or whatever public sector units are there. Instead of strengthening them, the government steps are going in the direction of weakening them. Why are we going for disinvestment? Why are we coming with the disinvestment plan every year we present a budget? Last year's, I think 75 to 80,000 crores were meant to be recovered in the revenue was to be received by way of disinvestment. But what has happened? Not even 40,000 crores came our way. And today, banks like IDBI, which is just, IDBI employees are worried that why it is being thought or why it is being put on the panel that it will be privatized. Private banks are not going for the people, they are not going for the employment, they are not going to help you. Now in the banks, instead of having where the potential is so large, when you have good profits, banks which were shouldering the responsibility of addressing the unemployment issue in the country, now they are not, because government has tied their hands. Whenever we talk to managements, they are saying we are not getting clearance from the finance ministry. So if this be the case, where would the people go? When we call that brain drain is happening day in, day out from India, where the youth would go if they are not finding, despite having good qualifications, they are not having any chances to get employment into banks or public sector, this thing where they would make their future. If that is so, they have no alternative but to leave the country. And this is a sad situation when we talk of creating employment. On one side, wherever employment opportunity capacity is there, employment is not given. Even this is happening in case of insurance companies also. Insurance companies who were doubted that one day all three general insurance companies were to be made one, or they were to be by way of disinvestment, they were to be decided. But now that, their solvency ratio and everything which has come up with the employees' hard work, now the government's